ahead and get started. It being 1 o'clock. We have quorum for both of our committees. With that said, I believe we're going to go ahead and do a TCC introduction and approval of the agenda. How should we do it? You know, let's just start going through the room, and we'll do whoever's online afterwards. Let's go over here.
Colton hires NCDOT Division 14 in training.
Alpesh Patel with NCDOT Transportation Planning Division.
I'll introduce Wes because he has a squeaky voice today. This is Wes Jameson. He's our Project Development Engineer in Division 14. I'm Steve Williams, Corridor Development Engineer in Transportation Planning Division for Division 14.
Stephen Sparks, Corridor Development Engineer, Division 13 with Transportation Planning Division.
I'm Cody Weddle, NCDOT District Engineer, Division 14, representing Haywood County.
Steve Cannon, NCDOT Division 13 Project Development Engineer.
Doug Phillips, NCDOT Division 13 Planning Engineer. Shannon Gotts, Mayor Millville.
Mike Eaglin, Town Mayor.
Sam Cohen, filling the role of interim town manager for the town manager.
Matthew Wessel, Chairman, Madison County Board of County Commissioners.
Ralph Evelyn, Alderman Telecam.
Hannah Bagley, FBRMPO.
Stacey Hunter, FBRMPO. Anthony Sutton, California. William High, Montgomery County.
Tristan Winkler, FBRMPO.
Vicky Houston, Land Scale RPO.
Paul, Washington County.
Susan Bean, I'm the Urban Transit appointee.
Ricky Early, Town of Woodman. Jim McAllister, Town of Woodman.
Chuck McGrady, Board of Transportation, Member at Large.
Lucy Crown, City of Asheville Transportation Planning. Janice Young, Fully, Apple Country Public Transit, Henderson County.
Daniel Fellers with NCDOT's Transportation Planning Division.
John Hunter with NCDOT Transportation Planning Division.
Kevin Ansley, I'm the Chair of the Haywood County Board of Commissioners.
Jen Hensley, City of Hendersonville.
Jim Flair, Town of Fletcher.
Sheila Franklin, Commissioner for Henderson County.
Nathan Bennett, Town Manager of Mars Hill.
Sandy Broadwell, Transportation Demand Manager for Land and Sky Regional Council. Ada McGovern, State Process School for Land and Sky Regional Council.
Thank you, everybody. Hannah, could you take us through the voting vote?
Yes. Archie Portiller.
Present.
Autumn Radcliffe.
Autumn Radcliffe, Henderson County.
Catherine Cordell.
Weaverville.
David White.
Yeah, I'm here. Am I rural transit or urban transit?
You are rural, David.
But I'm rural. Okay, thank you.
You were urban in a past appointment. Current appointment is rural.
Bill Key Ruth.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
James Eller.
Present, Town of Weaverville.
Pat Christie.
Pat Christie, Village of Flat Rock.
Chloe Donahoe.
Chloe Donahoe, Transportation Planner for Buncombe County.
Chris Medlin.
Chris Medlin, NCDOT District Engineer for Buncombe County.
Emily Whitmire.
Village of Flat Rock.
George Banta.
Town of Laurel Park.
Jody Ferguson.
Jody Ferguson, Development Services Manager for Haywood County.
Kim Roney.
Kim Roney, City of Asheville, Asheville City Council.
Matt Manley.
Here, Long Range Planning Manager, City of Hendersonville.
Nikki Abija.
Good morning. I'm the Mountains Regional Planner for IMD.
Sage Turner.
Hello, Sage Turner, Asheville City Council.
Parker Sloan.
Parker Sloan, Buncombe County.
Montreat Town Council.
Troy Wilson.
Good afternoon, Troy Wilson, NCDOT District Engineer, Division 14.
I believe that is everybody online.
We have 314. Can we have the folks who just walked in introduce themselves?
David Wasserman, NCDOT Division of Planning and Programming.
Teresa Robinson, also Division of Planning and Programming, NCDOT. Melissa Highland, NCDOT Division of Planning and Programming.
Thank you. And I guess also welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Apologies for how we sort of muddled through this. It's always a little different this month, as most of you are aware. With that said, I'm the chair of the TCC, and if there are no discussion or questions regarding our agenda for today or the minutes for the previous month, I will entertain a motion from the TCC and a second to approve the agenda and the minutes. So, thank you.
Second.
Who did? You're on the board.
You're on the TCC.
Oh, sorry. We're going to get through the... All right.
Point of clarification is that agenda and minutes or agenda and the full consent agenda?
Thank you. That being said, are there any questions regarding that agenda consent agenda? Okay. Hannah, would you help us out?
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Hi.
Jessica Moore, Buncombe County, William High. Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approve.
Anna Sellers, Transportation Planning Branch.
Approved.
Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Approved.
Metro, Eric Rupa. Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Public Transportation, Leanna Cooley.
Aye.
Hendersonville, Matt Manley. Maggie Valley, Sam Cullen. Aye. Marsville, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
Venice Sky RPO, Vicki Eastland. Aye. Waynesville, Elizabeth Teague.
Aye.
Jean Keller. Woodson, Ricky Hurley. Aye. NCDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
NCDOT Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
All right, ayes have it.
Thank you all. And with that, I'll hand it off to Anthony.
I am Anthony Sutton, Chair of the MPO. Welcome, everybody. We have two new people with us. Susan Bean, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Susan Bean. I work as the Housing and Transportation Director at Mountain True, and I'm the Urban Transit appointee.
Welcome to the board.
Thanks so much.
And then Shannon, you were reappointed?
You were reappointed. I took Jeff Moore's spot back for the MPO and stayed on track.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Still, but you got it all. We already did welcome everybody around. Approved of that SC. On the next. Oh, okay, put it up. We have a roadmap, guys. Okay, we're good. Yes. So next after reading the French Broad River MPO's ethics awareness conflict of interest reminder. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict for the record and refrain from any participation in the particular matter involved. This is for the MPO board. TCC can be, they don't have anything. Let's roll with it. Next agenda.
So moved.
Second. Wexler, and second by Chuck McCready.
Asheville, Kimroni.
Aye.
Asheville, Sage Turner.
Aye.
North Mountain, Archie Portiller.
Aye.
DOT Division 14, Chuck McGrady.
Aye.
Buncombe County, Drew Ball.
Aye.
Buncombe County, Parker Sloan.
Aye.
Canton, Dr. Ralph Hamlet.
Aye.
Flat Rock, Emily Whitmire. Fletcher, Jim Flair.
Aye.
Haywood County, Kevin Inslee.
Aye.
Henderson County, Sheila Franklin.
Aye.
Hendersonville, Jennifer Hensley. Aye. Laurel Park, George Banta.
Aye.
Madison County, Matt Wexel.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Mike Evelyn.
Aye.
Mills River, Shannon Dawn.
Aye.
Montreat, Tom Widmer. Rural Transit, David White.
Aye.
Urban Transit, Susan Bean. Aye. Waynesville, Anthony Sutton.
Aye.
Weaverville, Catherine Cordell. And Woodfin, Jim McAllister.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you for bearing with us there for just a minute. We just saved 2 votes for each one of us, so we combine the consent agenda with the agenda. We saved 2 roll calls. We should do this more often than that. Next is the informational items.
Public comment.
Oh, public comment. We do have one public comment. Mike, what's the last name?
School.
S-U-L-E? S-U-L-E. Okay, perfect. You do have 3 minutes to speak. I'm kind of lenient on 3 minutes.
You don't want to give me more than 3 minutes.
No, 3 minutes will be fine. My name is Mike Sewell. I am the Executive Director of the organization Asphalt on Bikes. We are a 501c3 with the mission of cultivating a culture of urban and commuter riding through advocacy, education, and celebration. So we do one of the things with education. We teach adult cycling classes. We have the longest running after-school bicycle program in the state of North Carolina. We teach the generation coming up how to ride their city and their community with confidence, knowledge, and joy. We host a variety of events designed to get people up and riding and welcoming them to participate in the right-of-way and embrace new types of mobility. And then we also do advocacy work, which is why I am in front of you all today. I first want to start off and thank DOT, particularly Division 13, Mark Anderson and Mr. Tritt, for inviting me in to have a conversation about recommendations to NC Scenic Byway 251, where 2 people on bikes were killed this summer. So I published a recommendation. I attempted to share it with you all via the web. I'm not sure if it is, but I have copies here. And in that letter, I made a series of recommendations. So I just want to go over them very quickly today. You know, number one, I know this body can't change the current strategic transportation investment law, but in that law, it prohibits NCDOT from spending standalone funds on bicycle and pedestrian facilities. That is an awful restriction because we cannot invest in the types of facilities that elevate safety in our community. Asheville has led in pedestrian and cyclist collisions and deaths for over 20 years. And this law restricts our ability to respond to it. The other thing is DOT has a prohibition on the bicycle may use full lane sign that was adopted by the federal highways in 2023. That is something that we need to change. Other than share the road, we need to communicate that cyclists indeed have a right to the public right-of-way and articulate where they can be in that on that facility. Third, regarding 251 specifically, we need to reduce the speed limits of that corridor. We need to apply surface treatments, and I go into details in my letter about what kind of surface treatments I talk about specifically, but implement traffic calming along that corridor. 5 is when we're making changes to 251, we need to be informed by the comprehensive planning that is happening. Woodfin just passed its bicycle pedestrian plan. Asheville has the Close the Gap plan. We have the Hellbender Regional Trail System, and 251 plays a part in all of those plans. The use of that corridor is expanding, and we need to respond to the expansion of that public right-of-way. And so I have the letter, and if you have any questions or comments or would like to speak about it further, I'm absolutely available. Thank you for your commitment to safe transportation in our region, and I look forward to working with you all on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much.
Is that 3 minutes and 25 seconds?
Oh! I did, yes. Sure.
Now we can go to informational items. Federal legislative updates. Bill?
Yeah, so just as a quick introduction, we've given several updates on this over the last several months. Just so everyone's aware, the bipartisan infrastructure law, or IIJA, is set to expire next year. With that, it's my understanding that Congress has started drafting the next transportation bill. And so, as many of you have seen, we've gotten a whole lot of updates on what's going on policy-wise and at the federal level from AMPO, or the Association of MPOs. That's an organization that this MPO is a part of. It's a national organization. They've been giving a whole lot of really fantastic updates that have really been critical, especially over the last year. So we did ask that the Association of MPOs come and provide an update on what they're seeing and hearing about the new federal transportation bill. And so with that, Bill, please take it away.
Great. Thank you, Tristan. Sorry about that. I was on mute. And thank you, Tristan, and thank you, committee members and members of the governing board. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to join you all this afternoon. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get this set up here. Okay. Is that coming through okay?
That is, so we can see your notes as well.
My notes as well. Okay, so I got to switch this, I believe. How about that?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate the patience there. And as Tristan mentioned, my name is Bill Carouse, and I serve as the executive director of the Association of MPOs. And I was asked to join you all today to give a quick overview of how federal funds flow from Washington down to the French Broad River MPO, and sort of give a status update on where things stand with the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. So but I will go ahead and do that. Before I do that, I just wanted to offer a little bit about AMPO, how we're structured, and the programs and services that we offer. So we are all about our members. As you can see here by this fun graphic, we start right in the middle with our members, and everything goes out from there. We are a member-led, member-driven organization, and we rely heavily on our volunteers and our member MPOs to really drive everything that we do. To ensure that we're really meeting the needs of the practitioners that are on the ground doing the good work. So a little bit about how we're structured. And now I'll share a couple of resources just on Federal Transportation Funding 101. As Tristan mentioned, we spent the last 2 years or so really trying to put together some helpful materials in the context of reauthorization, knowing that it would be coming in September of 2026. And so as you may know, the majority of our programs and the majority of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill is funded out of the Highway Trust Fund. That will certainly be a hot topic as they are continuing to move through reauthorization in terms of trying to find the funds. As you may know, they've had to transfer significant amounts from the general fund into the Highway Trust Fund to keep it solvent over the last couple of bills. And it's likely they're going to have to do that again. There is a lot of talk about EV related fees and some other fees to try to close that gap, but The House Ways and Means Committee and appropriators are likely going to have to find at a minimum $40 billion just to maintain current levels. So certainly no small task. The way that these funds are then distributed is through a formula program to the states, and then to MPOs that are of 200,000 in population and above. Certain programs get suballocated, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then the majority of these funds have a local match requirement of 20% to that 80% federal. The programs are sort of broken into two buckets. The highway and transit planning funds. These funds provide the ability to do studies region-wide. They fund staff, they fund operations, a number of different things. But really the core pot of money that gets to the MPOs nationwide. Then there's the capital funds, and you can see the list of programs here. And as I mentioned, to the MPOs of 200 plus population, these are then provided to you to program and fund projects as you see fit best for your region. I just wanted to flag a resource. We have a competitive grants tracker live on our website. It's updated in real time, and we sort of organize it in a way that's most useful and curated for you. So whether you're an MPO, a tribal government, a state government, you can sort of filter and query and search pretty easily to find those that may be of most interest. So getting into a little bit on reauthorization 101. This again is the process by which transportation funding and policy are authorized. Usually happens about every 5 or 6 years. That can change a little bit here and there. And then the federal transportation funding is guaranteed through reauthorization out of the Highway Trust Fund. The primary committees you can see here that are involved in writing the policy and passing the bills are on the House side. House T&I does policy, Ways and Means does funding, and then Science does research. And then on the Senate side, EPW, Environment, Public Works does highways, Banking does transit, and Commerce does general research and safety. And so AMPO has been actively engaged with all of those committees to really ensure that our policy priorities are front and center in these discussions. And so that continues to be an ongoing effort. Just a quick abridged history of REAUTH. I wanted to point out a couple of things. In 1962, the metropolitan planning process by which we operate under today was established. And then in 1973, sort of the structure and idea of the MPO was formalized into the way that we operate today. And there was some dedicated funding put towards that process. And then there was a sort of another big jump in 1991, where MPOs were provided the project selection that you have today on some of those suballocated funds. So just a quick snapshot of some milestones along the way and where we're headed. The IIJA was an infrastructure bill, and so much larger than we've seen in years past. Something else to point out is it had a significantly larger chunk of competitive funding than past bills. And as a result of that, there were certainly some challenges in being able to access those funds along the way. And because of some of those challenges, there's a lot of discussion in Washington right now on folding those programs into some sort of formula distribution. And so as those conversations are happening, AMPO is working with our partners to make sure that the eligibility for local and regional governments is maintained, and that the access to those funds remains, because I think that was also a significant difference in this bill. And largely why we saw all of these competitive programs is because Congress identified a need for local governments and regional governments to be able to access federal funds. And while they weren't able to do it through a formula in the IIJA, they did so through the competitive funding programs. And so now the discussion is, okay, if we're going to be folding some of those into formula, we really need to maintain that access for local and regional governments. So a little bit on the process timeline where we are. Just maybe a little bit before the fall of 2025, as I mentioned, AMPO has been working for the last 2+ years really hard with our members and certainly also with our partners, which I'll get to in a minute. But doing a ton of survey work, really getting on the ground, talking to our members, trying to understand what worked, what didn't work, and how we might be able to make things a little bit more effective and efficient for the MPOs and local governments in the next go around. And so we have a ton of resources on our website that kind of captures all of that. And we were able to distill that down into some priorities, which I'll get to in a second. But in terms of the timeline, House T&I is moving a little bit faster than the Senate. Chairman Graves has said that he originally wanted a bill by the end of the calendar year. Obviously, that's not going to happen, and he has sort of revised that timeline to be the spring. But they are working fairly aggressively to really hit that timeline of potentially having a bill hit the House floor in the spring. And so we know that the majority staff on House T&I is now sharing chunks of text, the base text of the bill, with the minority staff, and there's been some ongoing back and forth. As we understand it, that will continue through December and early into the new year, again with the goal of having a bill by sometime in the spring. We'll see something released and we'll see some markups along the way. The Senate's moving a little bit slower. With the bill expiring at the end of September, their goal is certainly to have something, but it's likely going to be a little bit behind whatever the House is able to do. And then, of course, we have the November midterms, which could start to factor into things as we get a little bit closer to September 30th. In terms of those priorities that I mentioned, we sort of distilled it down into a couple of areas. A number of things related to the planning funds that I mentioned, primarily increasing those planning funds and then creating some ways for some more flexibility, and really finding some ways to empower regional decision-making, making sure that the projects that you program and you select and identify as high priority for your region are getting funded and seen through to implementation. And then just finding some ways to provide a little bit more flexibility, particularly with the match requirements, the ability to carry over federal funds from year to year, to account for any sort of unforeseen circumstances or things like this that tend to pop up. And then again, finding ways to improve safety throughout the region, understanding that if SS4A as a competitor program is no longer going to be in existence, let's talk about folding it into some sort of formula program that, again, ensures that safety dollars are getting down to the regional level and you're able to really invest in safety as a priority. So all of that is captured in our latest roadmap, which is available on our website. And excuse me, I'll be sure to share this slide deck with Tristan after the presentation today, and happy to answer any questions, certainly here today and after the fact. So I mentioned that we're working with our partners. We have deemed ourselves the LOT Coalition, the Local Officials in Transportation. And we're made up of these 6 organizations that you can see here to the right. We have been working closely for the last 2 or so years to really come together as a coalition and identify some priorities that we as a group could really get behind and champion and make sure that we're delivering that message to Congress as they're going through the reauthorization process. And maybe another way to visualize this, collectively, our members represent everything that you see here on the map. And so, I think that really resonates when we're able to show that to members of Congress that, we are a pretty strong voice as far as it goes related to their constituents and who we're representing as these 6 organizations. So the coalition has really kind of focused in on the fact that as of where we stand today, the system is out of balance. Local and counties and regions own and are responsible for a large chunk of the system. We understand that varies from state to state, but nationally speaking, there is a high percentage of ownership, and yet we only have access to roughly 14% of federal formula dollars. So there's obviously a high need and sort of a low ability to access federal dollars and meet that need. So another is just scale of local and regional needs, understanding that when you look at bridges, for example, the majority of bridges that are in poor condition are owned by counties, and yet the counties don't have access to the federal funds to be able to meet that need. And we have some good data on our website to be able to sort of demonstrate that, and encourage everybody to take a look, and happy to provide that afterwards as well. And then decision-making authority. This is obviously a priority for AMPO as well, but just making sure that the projects that we program and that we select are in fact getting funded and getting implemented. So we have a couple of areas of focus here to sort of restore the balance, if you will. And that gets into project delivery and project readiness. I would say between both sides of the Hill, the House, Senate, and the current administration and USDOT, project delivery is top of mind. That is something that everybody is very focused on in this next reauthorization bill. And so we want to be a good partner in that. MPOs do a great job at project readiness and sort of working with our local partners to make sure that things are delivered on time and on budget. And so we are very focused on being a good partner in that. And we have some ideas as to how we could potentially be even a better partner. And then permitting is also a top of mind for everybody in terms of delivering this bill, and how we can find some ways to find some efficiencies and streamline some things there. So definitely encourage everybody to take a look and get plugged into everything that the Lot Coalition has been pushing for. Happy to follow up with anybody with any additional information, but not only is AMPO engaging with all of the authorizers and key committee staff, but the coalition as a whole is also engaging. And I know that they're pushing out the same information through all of their channels and through their membership. And so anywhere we're able to cross collaborate, we are super excited to be able to do that. So please feel free to reach out. And if you're active in any of those other organizations, I'd encourage you to reach out to them as well. We are working very closely together through reauthorization and otherwise. And then there's a QR code to access some more of our stuff, as well as the Lot Coalition stuff. And Katie Economou, our Ledge Director, is always available to be of any kind of assistance as well. And with that, I will wrap it up, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Does anyone have any questions for Bill?
Yeah, Bill, it's been recently reported that under the future reauthorization that there would be an elimination of the transit fund under the highway trust fund. Could you speak to that a little bit and what the impact of that could be?
Sure. So we have not actually seen anything yet. It is our understanding that FHWA and FTA have or are about to send the administration's priorities over to OMB for final sign off, with then that being delivered to the Hill for consideration. We also understand that both Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson on House T&I said that was not something they were interested in. They, in a bipartisan way, said that they were not looking to entertain some of those recommendations should they become real and sent from OMB over to the Hill. So it's our understanding that likely will not come to fruition. But it's also sort of a little bit unclear what's actually in the recommendation, because that has not been shared with anybody. We understand that it's been reported, but we have not actually gotten our own eyes on it. It's something that we're paying close attention to, and we'll certainly monitor and keep our members informed in real time. But at the same time, again, Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson have said it's not something that they would look to get into the bill.
Any other questions for Bill?
I would just note a couple of things. First of all, I do want to commend Bill and his team at AMPO. When I first started here, I think there were some questions about whether or not we were going to be involved with AMPO in my time here. AMPO has turned into a very important resource, and in the last year, it has been an absolutely essential resource. I think especially throughout the year, we forwarded you all a number of updates from the association, and it has helped provide a lot of clarity and understanding, and really been a fantastic tool and asset for our MPO. And I would say we've talked about this with other MPOs across the state. The same deal. Absolutely cannot say enough about Bill. You and your team have been absolutely fantastic. I do encourage our folks. We did put a link to Bill's slides in the agenda packet. They have created a number of fantastic educational materials, including a board game. Believe it or not, folks, I'm a nerd. We'll probably have that board game soon. So the other thing I wanted to note is that we did send in a letter of support. AMPO alerted us that there was a request for information regarding priorities for the new transportation bill. We put in a letter that echoed a lot of the items that AMPO noted. And one thing that I will note that we added that I want to talk about really quick is DA funding. And so I just want to provide a really quick thing on this. So for those of you who aren't aware, the MPO receives this MPO receives 3 sets of direct allotments, or DA funds. Those are federal funds that are required to come to large urban areas such as ours. The largest of those allotments is the Surface Transportation Block Grant, or STPG-DA. Everything's an acronym. And we receive smaller allotments of TAP, or Transportation Alternatives Program, and CRP, or Carbon Reduction Program. As Bill noted, those funds have helped cover 80% of eligible project costs on a lot of projects around our region. The 20% local match is needed. One of the things that's nice about this is I kind of compared the steps in how we get projects programmed for DA funds versus prioritization. DA funds, it's fairly simple. We have a call for projects, and the TCC and board select projects. Pretty easy. Just to note, there are a whole lot of projects out there. The font is small, but that's in part because there's a ton of projects. I won't go through them all, but we do have over $50 million of program projects that are currently out there in the region. This is the list. You can see there are a whole lot of projects, sidewalks, greenways, transit improvements, as well as some bridge replacements. We do have a number of recently completed projects. I won't go through them all, but that does include sidewalks that are right outside here. And we do have partially funded projects. So part of why I wanted to bring this up, I've talked to this with a few people, and I know we've had a lot of board turnover since the last call for projects we've had. So part of it is I just want to bring this up for everyone's awareness. And we did have some follow-up with the public comment from last month. One thing that's somewhat unique about our direct allotment funding is, as of right now, 97% of the program funds are going to standalone bike path projects. That is in large part because of what our local governments are requesting. Maggie Valley wanted to improve pedestrian safety on US 19 after several high-profile crashes. Henderson County had a big dream to build a rail trail over to Brevard. So a big part of this, I want people to be aware, this is something we sent over to Congress. It's a source of funds that I think are very important and give our region a lot of say. It's not to say that they aren't without issues. Something we've talked about more and more is project delivery, and hoping to accelerate and overcome obstacles there. But I want these bodies, the TCC and the board, to be aware of this, because I have had a few conversations where people have said, I had no idea this is what the MPO has and what you programmed. And so I will say I'm going to be increasingly annoying about this. I do see a lot of updates going to councils and other places saying, you know, there's funds from NCDOT. NCDOT plays a very important role in the administration of these funds. It's no knock on NCDOT. We work on programming funds cooperatively. But I do think it's important to know, especially as new transportation bills are being drafted, that our region has utilized a lot of direct allotment funds. They've gone to projects that otherwise would have had a very, very difficult time being funded. And it's given us kind of a flexibility that we wouldn't otherwise have. And so I do want folks to understand that there's a lot of funding out there. There's a lot of projects that have been pushed forward either by yourselves or by your predecessors that are helping to improve communities around the region. And I think it's something that, you know, it would be worthwhile communicating about, letting people know just exactly what we're getting done. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments to Bill? Bill, I hope we can see you in May.
Yeah, Bill, we will be hosting the statewide Association of MPOs conference in May, if you're able to join. But if not, then I think I have bugged Bill about whether or not we can host one of their national get-togethers at some point in the future.
Good reason to come to Asheville.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, and thank you, Tristan. I appreciate the kind words. And again, thank you to everyone in the room for your time. I'll circle back with you, Tristan, on the dates in May. We'll figure something out. And then I do have Asheville in the RFP for that event, so I'll keep you posted on that too. So, and please do feel free to reach out if you all ever need anything. We're here to be a resource and we want to be helpful. So I appreciate the time and look forward to further engagement.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we're going to move on to NCDOT transportation planning updates.
All right, and with us today is the Director of Transportation Planning, Alpesh Patel. Thank you, Alpesh.
Thank you, Tristan. All these slides are being queued up. I just want to say what a pleasure it is to be with you here this afternoon. Thank you to the chairs of the TCC and governing board, as well as to those of you on both of those committees. My name is Alpesh Patel. I am the director of the Transportation Planning Division. And if you can cue to the next slide, Tristan, what I want to talk with you all today in the next 15 or so minutes is, number one, a reminder of what our Transportation Division does, who we are, what our responsibility is, where we live in the process of identifying projects early in the planning process. Number two, talk with you a little bit about the initiatives that we have underway in our division. I am trying to focus on three themes with my staff, which is one, to raise the visibility and value of the work that we do. Secondly, to elevate our planning practice, to take what has been some traditional methods and kind of boost them with some new, fresh perspective. And third, to strengthen our partnerships that we have with local MPOs and RPOs, such as here in Atlantic Sky and French Broad. And so prior to coming back to NCDOT about a year ago, I was in consulting, working with state DOTs around the country, Utah, Virginia, Louisiana, West Virginia, Florida, Texas. And I'm hoping to bring a lot of that best practice here to North Carolina. Prior to my time in consulting, I was actually in NCDOT for 20 and a half years, moving up through progressive levels of leadership. So I have 30 years of combined public and private sector experience, and I'm thrilled to be back with the agency and really excited after 1 year of inventorying and taking observation to start moving forward on a number of our initiatives. And then the last thing we'll talk about today is just our future state. I'll go over with you some initiatives we have underway that we're operationalizing this year, but also where we're headed next year and beyond. So if you'll go forward, Tristan. First and foremost, I think it's helpful to set a little bit of context, and this slide is automated, so if you'll click down. The Transportation Planning Division is primarily responsible for 3 services and products: comprehensive transportation plans, project-level traffic forecasts, and travel demand models. And I'll talk about the latter 2 in just a minute. But what you see in green, the comprehensive transportation plans, are needs-based, long-range plans that have a 25 or 30-year horizon. They are not fiscally constrained, but they can be county-based or regionally based. In other words, up to 3 counties can be part of a regional CTP. These plans are rooted in state legislation from the 1960s, and they've evolved over the years. And we're at a point now where we're actively managing 25 of these CTPs that are in different stages of development. They are the basis for identifying potential solutions to address future demand, future congestion, future mobility issues very early in the planning process. Long before we get to programming, long before we get to prioritization, we're identifying these potential solutions in CTPs. What you see in the orange circle are the metropolitan transportation plans. These are federally required. They have a minimum 20-year plan horizon. This MPO adopted their latest 2050 MTP about 2 months ago. And our role in transportation planning is to help resource and support the MPOs as they take the lead in producing that. So those 2 things, what you see shaded in green and orange, along the CTPs and MTPs, they form the basis for projects that ultimately are submitted to the Strategic Prioritization Office of Transportation, or the SPOT process, which helps to implement the STI law. The encouragement has been there for many years, a strong encouragement from the state that projects should be selected from these CTPs and MTPs because, again, they're rooted in a technical, robust analysis. And I think, as many of you know, the SPOT process helps to identify the projects through a data-driven structure, through criteria and scoring methodology and a framework of those projects that have the greatest potential to score well and to be programmed in our 10-year TIP. So if you'll keep moving forward, that 10-year TIP, as I think many of you know, the first 4 years is what requires federal approval. But our 10-year TIP includes a delivery STIP, which is the first 5 years, and then a developmental TIP, which is years 6 through 10. So the projects that are identified in both those orange and green shaded areas ultimately make their way into the developmental part of the STIP after going through the SPOT process, and then ultimately are programmed and constructed. And as you know, from the very ideation and concept of a project to when it's actually constructed could take, in some cases, decades to come to fruition. But this is how everything is nested together. And if we'll go forward, just keep, continuing, Tristan, to the next slide. So, as I mentioned, there are 3 key products that our division is responsible for. I've talked about the CTPs. These project-level traffic forecasts, the second blue box on the far right, there are 30 of those that are active currently in different stages of development. And on average, it takes 3 to 4 months to produce these forecasts. We use both historical trends, but we're also looking at emerging trends, different patterns that are now associated with the post-COVID world, more work from home patterns, more e-commerce, so that our trucks are moving at different hours of the day. That is now being incorporated in thinking about these project-level forecasts. And these are critical paths to make sure that we're informing the development and design decisions of projects that are downstream from our division. So we're very disciplined about trying to keep those on schedule. And then the last product we produce are travel demand models. These are basically a computer electronic simulation of a regional or local street network. It can also be a multimodal network that helps to define both current traffic patterns and conditions, but also a platform to assess what future demand is going to look like in a county or a large regional area. And we rely on other divisions within DOT, aviation, the Integrated Mobility Division, the Rail Division, to help us make sure that we're inventorying as much of a multimodal perspective as we develop all of this work. And as I said a few minutes ago, any special studies that are underway, could be a safety action plan, any corridor studies, things that come out of a planning work program that are produced by an MPO or an RPO, we provide technical assistance for that. We'll continue. Our division is structured to support working closely and coordinating with not only our planning partners, but also our divisions, the 14 divisions and those folks that are represented in the room here. So as you can see in the color shade, we have 4 planning groups: the mountains, the western Piedmont, the eastern Piedmont, and the coast. And each of our coordinators, such as Daniel and John, to the left of me, are responsible typically for one MPO and one RPO that have an adjoining border, so that there can be a lot of cross coordination that's occurring in an efficient way. We've also, since this summer, have added 8 corridor development engineers. So Stefan and Steve, here to my right, are now part of our division. Corridor development engineers were initiated out of state legislation almost 8 years ago. Their role is to help scope projects and support and augment, particularly RPOs and small MPOs, so that they can put forward the best projects possible through that spot process, but also to help with cost verification memos and to help with other data collection. So we're beginning to integrate the CDEs into the work that we do around the state, and especially help augment staff in many cases that are 1 FTE in MPOs and RPOs. So if you'll keep moving forward. I've had the opportunity to help lead a new strategic plan for our division. It was launched back in May. This has created a new brand for our division, a new mission statement and vision, 6 new goals and values, and we're now trying to live out those goals and values. We are currently narrowing down a list of about 90 actions that came out of this 2.5-year process, so that we have a roadmap for the next year of what we're going to focus on. It'll be a top 5, potentially top 10 list that I'll be reporting to the leadership on a regular basis of what we're going to accomplish and how we got there. So this is helping to give us a North Star as we move forward. And if you'll continue, Tristan, part of the initiative that's coming out of our strategic plan is threefold. One is to better communicate the services that we provide, and we've done that in a very simple way. The Connect page on ncdot.gov, which is unauthenticated and public-facing, has now been refreshed. There was a lot of dated material in the past. We have simplified a lot of the narrative on this page. We've provided links that actually work to dashboards and to data that we manage and support. We've got an at-a-glance calendar on this page. So if you're an MPO and RPO staff planner or anybody working in a county or municipality, you can see what the deadlines are for the next year, both to meet state and federal requirements. And we'll continue to keep this page refreshed every quarter with new resources as they emerge. And then the second area that we're focusing on under the strategic plan, if you go forward, is the development of more dashboards and the use of geographic information systems, or GIS-enabled mapping that's more interactive and more useful and frankly more intuitive. So this is an example of a map that's under construction now. It is intended to help anybody with an internet connection drill down and find out the status of any of those CTPs that I mentioned. Which ones are starting, which ones have just been adopted, which ones are maybe over 10 years old that we need to focus on. We're beginning to put together a criteria to help us manage the next production wave of these CTPs, so that we make sure we optimize our bench of both staff and potentially consultants to help us with the CTPs. We're also faced with the fact that it's taking up to 3 years on average to produce a CTP from start to finish, and we're really ambitiously looking at ways that we can reduce that timeline, create more reliable schedules, and then obviously link the status to a map like this. So next slide. We've created an interactive dashboard for our travel demand models. We have 3 major regional models in the Metrolina, Triad, and Triangle that we maintain through service bureaus and local and state partnerships. But we're also standing up regional models in places that haven't been done before, including in the high country in Boone, and treating the RPO there as an equal partner in that process. And so I'll talk to you about that here in the next slide. The goal is multifold for developing these models. You'll go to the next slide, Tristan. We have established since the spring of this year a coordinating committee, and we had a kickoff meeting in September. There are 13 local officials in the greater high country region, which is about 5 out of the 7 counties that make up that RPO. These are county managers, transit planners, representatives from Appalachian State and Caldwell and Wilkes Community College. And the goal is to use those folks to help ground truth all the data we need to build this regional travel demand model. We need to know the number of employers that are over a certain threshold. We need to have certificate of occupation information that helps us understand the current population. We need to know what the transit patterns are in that area and what kind of visitor data. As you know, just like here in the greater Asheville area, there's a lot of seasonality that occurs even in the high country. And so we're trying to capture all that in this model. And one of the ways that we've been engaging that local group is through the use of this ArcGIS online tool. This is what you see in blue are all the roads that we hope to model and simulate current conditions and to try to replicate them against actual counts. By sending this one link to those 13 members, they can actually drop a pin on that road and they can say, hey, you've got this wrong. This is a 4-lane section, not a 2-lane section. They can drop a pin in multiple places and say, we have seen a lot of accidents and fatalities in these locations. These are safety hotspots that you need to think about. So it's allowing us to validate our work and saving weeks of time instead of back and forth emails. We can now capture all of their comments in a single location. So we're going to build upon this type of technology as we move forward to do planning. And if you go to the next slide, Tristan, some of the key benefits of why we're pushing for these regional models is to be able to use them as a test bed to run sensitivity analysis on future projects. The RPO, just like their counterparts around the state, every other year have an opportunity to submit projects for scoring and programming. Well, if they have a tool like this, they can actually assess which of those projects are going to perform well, which ones have the strong potential to do that. So we're building an opportunity to do that as well as to do scenario planning. And in this area, as well as Western North Carolina, we're still, experiencing the recovery of being 1 year removed from Hurricane Helene. Tools like this can help identify where there is a need for redundancy in a greater regional network. What roadways need to be signed differently in the future so that critical supplies can come in and out of that area and performance is not impacted during that event. So we can run scenarios to prepare for those future events, as well as look at growth scenarios. If those of you that are familiar with the Toyota battery plant in Liberty, North Carolina, that has scaled immensely, almost overnight, and has added so much truck traffic to secondary and local roads. So tools like these regional models can help assess what is the performance impact if a large land use and large scale development happens in a rural area or even outside of an urban area. So we are really bullish about what these tools can do, but also we want to equip our planners to become more conversant on how to use them. So if you'll go forward. So I'll wrap up here with just a few more comments. This spring, we also instituted new guidelines to assess risk and resilience early in the planning process. We issued a guidance that identifies out of the 7 stages that a CTP develops, 4 out of those 7 give you an opportunity to identify through observed events historically through surveys, through a lot of data and tools that DOT has used already, where roads and bridges are more at risk, more vulnerable for major events. And we're piloting and operationalizing this guidance through a regional CTP in the northeastern part of the state. And as we do this for the next 2 years and update our guidance, we're also going to turn around and help train the MPOs and RPOs on this guidance. And Tristan, I'd love to see more of this resilience analysis occur in the next update to the MTP based on how it's informed from this real-world effort. So, next slide. So, as we go forward, we're going to focus next year, again, under our strategic plan, on how do we better link our long-range plans to the programming process. I mentioned to you that the CTPs are not fiscally constrained. We're going to begin evaluating what would it look like to start creating an early planning level cost estimate to these CTPs that can help inform decisions that lead to projects that are submitted to the spot process. Secondly, we're going to release our annual report. This is an inaugural new report for our division in which we identify different initiatives and accomplishments, and we're targeting that for the first quarter of next year. And then third, we're going to continue to strengthen and look for opportunities to work more closely with our local partners. I'm currently working with a consultant here within the next month to create a stronger foundation of our financial and budgetary practice in the division. We receive state planning and research funds every year that we dispense and allocate and administer to MPOs and RPOs. We want to make sure we're maximizing every dollar of that. And so we're going to have a consultant help us to identify how we can do that better as we turn to next year. And then the last point I'll make, it's not on this slide, but it's sort of a tee up for a presentation you'll hear this afternoon. Our division is supporting the development and update to a toll policy handbook. This is a handbook that's been in place for about 8 years that the Board of Transportation adopted. That handbook basically or the policy, I should say, basically ushered the development of a handbook that dictates a pre-screening assessment that once an MPO and RPO asks for the state DOT to evaluate potential tolling in their area, the project itself would go through an initial pre-screening, and it would be a financial feasibility and performance test. So this was adopted back in 2018, 2019. It was an Excel-based approach to do this early identification of projects that have the viability of covering their operating and maintenance costs. We are going to evolve that Excel-based tool into something that's more GIS-based and more online-based, but we're just in the beginning stages of that work. So we'll be coming back to you with an update on that later next year. And with that, I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Questions for Ben?
Thank you for coming. This is really great information, and we've got, I think, really strong relationships with our local DOT folks, and I'm so excited to see all this stuff moving forward. Henderson County specifically is still really struggling with roads from the hurricane itself, and so I was just wondering, moving forward, we've got these plans in place, but how do you kind of capture some of the stuff? And it sounds like you've got a lot of experience in the past with hurricane-affected regions and areas, and so how do you foresee areas of North Carolina that have been affected by natural disasters kind of being able to recover in a timely manner?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can't speak exactly to how to accelerate that recovery, Jennifer, but there is a group of us that meets every month, a resilience team, essentially, and we represent different parts of the agency, including the leaders in our department that are helping to usher in tools such as flood warning tools that have helped even warn our division here when the river was overtopping the roadway on 40. So the goal would be over time to build a resiliency practice in the department, and we've begun over the last few years to start maturing by looking at other states that are managing a practice like Colorado and Florida, but ultimately to advance both more sophisticated planning when it comes to looking at prior events and hazards. Secondly, identifying where that at-risk infrastructure is in the state, especially along long corridors or within communities. And then third, making different design decisions, maybe to harden that infrastructure and flag that decision-making earlier in our pre-construction process. So those are all kind of like goals that we collectively have and we're pushing towards. You're welcome.
Well, I think short term on the roads that are damaged, that's been handled through our emergency process. So it kind of steps it's on a different path than our standard project path. So, but in our standard project path, we recognize things from the storm like Alpesh was talking about that we need to take into account as we're designing new things. But if you've got a specific issue or a road, just get with your local district engineer and see what their schedule is. But they're kind of running parallel paths, but the storm side runs at a different pace because we have some freedom with emergency response that we don't have on a standard project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to talk about safety targets. We are. So we are bringing this up as informational this month, just so folks are aware. We did receive the initial packet from NCDOT regarding safety targets, and this is something we talk about on an annual basis. Just as a reminder, safety targets and performance targets in general have been a requirement since 2016 of the MAP 21 Act. In general, states are required to develop safety targets, and MPOs are given 180 days to either agree to what the state has set or set our own targets. As of last year, I will note no MPO in North Carolina has set their own targets. That changed last year with us. Just as some more background, with the safety targets specifically, there's 5 targets: fatalities, fatality rate, serious injury rate, and non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And again, our general choice in this is to either adopt NCDOT's safety targets or to set our own. Summary from last year's discussion, we did discuss this at 4 different meetings last year. Don't do that again, folks. Our MPO did become the first in the state to set our own targets. It's my understanding that a number of other MPOs are considering to follow suit this year. The other thing we learned is not setting targets is a bad idea. We didn't set targets at first. We were informed by Federal Highways that we need to have targets in order for our TIP, the document that authorizes funding, to be compliant. So let's not set targets this year. So a little bit on what we adopted last year, as well as in our safety plan versus NCDOT. NCDOT's overall goal over the next, or through 2050, is to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes by half by 2035 and move towards zero by 2050. Our goal is reducing fatal and serious injury crashes by 10% by 2035, half by 2045, and move towards zero by 2050. So in general, it looks a little bit like that. It's a slow decline at first that quickly accelerates. And yes, the graph shows 2055, we moved that to 2050. And so that did come out of the safety plan as well as last year's discussion with the MPO board. Just to summarize, I think we had some really, really good discussions on that. One of the points that I think was most salient was we are being asked to set targets for 2026 and what happens in 2026. But in terms of the other decisions we make about what projects get funded and what interventions happen, a lot of those decisions are set to impact 2033, 2035. And so, from my recollection, that's a big part of the reason why we went with what we went with, is that increasing safety interventions with the safety plan, you know, the acceleration of impacts would be expected to be seen later on. I made some charts just to highlight the current trend line, which is in green for roadway fatalities, where our target would set us, and where NCDOT's recommended target for the MPO is. So as you can see, the MPO's target is considerably less aggressive than NCDOT's. I think the way that it was also put is more achievable, but also an improvement versus the trend line that we're seeing. So you can kind of see that throughout all 5 targets. This is fatalities. Sorry, I went too fast. Fatality rates, serious injury rates, and non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Just to note, there is some data wonkiness, and I'll note we did change our boundaries that went into effect after 2024. So there has been some shifting of data a little bit here and there. But in general, that is what we're looking at. That is a requirement of the MPOs to adopt safety targets. We do have a February deadline, but we are planning on holding a vote in January on the safety targets. Are there any questions, comments, or additional information that would be helpful in that decision?
I noticed in the Safe Streets for All WNC that our goal was to reduce fatalities and serious injuries by 2035 by 50% in the plan. What's different between that and the NCDOT goals? Was it 10%?
10% by 2035.
Yeah. What's the difference? Isn't that a big difference? 50 and 10%?
So the state target is half by 2035, the MPOs is 10% by 2035.
Okay. All right.
Hannah, do you remember, I thought we moved the Safe Streets goal to cover the match with the MPOs.
Should have matched with ours.
We'll look into that. That's a good question. Any other questions?
This is Kim from the City of Asheville. I just have my same perennial concern is just we have this requirement and goal to set safety targets, and of course we have to apply it throughout the year because we know that designing our streets for safety outcomes will help us meet our goals.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim. So when do we have to go through this process again? So we will bring this for a vote in January. We have to have a target set by February. Or our SIP is bad, or our SIP is non-compliant, and that will stop a lot of federal processes regarding funding and project approval. So I see how you did this. You limited us to just January. I'm leaving a low buffer. You know, we're open to discussions here. That's what we're all about.
You can always call a special because of the.
We all know what to ask them.
Yes. Thank you, Kristen. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Will to do the confidence scope and cost estimate funds.
Oh, and with us for that, we have a number of people. We've got Steve Cannon with Division 13, we got Teresa Robinson with the NCDOT STIP unit, and we've got David Wasserman also with the STIP unit today. So
you'll have to bear with us. There'll be actual items after the next two items, and there'll be two different votes as well.
Right. So the way that we're going to set this up this time is we'll have our presenters present on the item, and following that, we'll have a TCC motion, second, vote, followed by a board motion, second, vote. But in general, presenters only have to go once. This time, for those of you who have been in these meetings last time, presenters went twice. It's all for you, presenters. But yeah, Steve, I believe you're kicking us off.
Sure thing, Greg. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I look around the room and I see a lot of familiar faces. I see some faces maybe I don't recognize, but I see a lot of people in here. We all have the same similar goal, as Mike said earlier and others have said, to meet the transportation needs, to provide safe and efficient transportation for our communities and the people we serve. And so we've struggled some with that, with delivery, and it's been a concern with the delays we've seen on some of the local projects, and that's a concern to us at DOT as well. And so our divisions, we work very closely with David and his staff at the STIP to develop and implement new ways to make us more efficient and help us in that process. And that's what they're going to share with us today is another tool for that. And so I'll turn it over to Teresa, and she'll give us a presentation on cost, confidence scope and cost estimate.
Thank you all today. My name is Teresa Robinson. I'm the Western STIP Region Manager, so I cover Divisions 10 through 14, and also your lovely MPO. So today we will be talking about our new milestone, the confidence scope and cost estimate milestone.
Speak up just a little bit, please.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sorry, I see the mic and I'm like, there is a mic, but there's not a mic. So in the past 5 years, the department has had a series of challenges associated with our cost estimates. So we've had projects with initial low estimates. We've had projects experience large increases as the projects have gone through the development process. We've had challenges associated with inflation and market conditions. And we've also had issues with our project estimates not being updated in a timely manner. And so because of these issues, this has resulted in hundreds of projects being either delayed or canceled, and very few new projects being selected for programming in our couple of STIPs. So if you recall the 24 to 33 STIP, we did not pick up any new projects. P6 was canceled. There was no money available in any of our STI buckets to pick up new projects. And our most recent STIP, the 2635, there was only funding availability for 4 out of our 22 STI projects. So still very few projects were able to be picked up in this latest STIP. Next slide, please. And so what have we done about this? So NCDOT has implemented a couple policies to help rein in these cost estimates. So we now require an engineering analysis, otherwise known as express designs, before projects are included in the final STIP. Our estimates are now updated on a regular cycle, so every 2 years, and then also dependent on the milestone date. So our right-of-way is updated every 10 months, or the 10 months prior to right-of-way acquisition, and our construction estimate needs to be updated 16 months prior to let. Our construction estimates are also now based on the latest bid averages. This was implemented March of 2024. And we also have express designs on projects that are being submitted through prioritization. So our new confidence scope and cost estimate milestone is a continuation of these improvements. Next slide, please. Okay, so what exactly is this new milestone? So this milestone is for projects that are selected through prioritization that are in the first 5 years of the STIP, known as scheduled for delivery projects. This will ensure that we have agreement on the scope for the project, and it helps create confidence in the cost estimate because we have solidified the scope for the project. And our future goal is that projects should have this milestone prior to being programmed in the STIP as scheduled for delivery. And as a result of this new milestone, we expect that there will be fewer and/or smaller cost increases associated with these projects, and therefore we'll have fewer project delays because of funding availability. This will create stability in the STIP, and this will allow projects to be implemented on schedule, hopefully not delayed, and it will also allow us to more accurately plan or budget for our future STIP. Next slide, please. Okay, so from a timing perspective, when do we want to achieve this milestone? So we kind of have categorized projects in 3 different categories. For our very basic, very simple projects like your turn lanes or your signal projects, the scope and the cost estimate will be based off of the express design. For our more complicated projects, such as widening or single alternative projects, this will be based off of the design recommendation plan set, or otherwise known as 25% plans. Essentially, your vertical and horizontal grade will be established without right-of-way, or sorry, without drainage. And majority of the projects in the STIP will fit in this category. We're also holding this category to, or applying this to all of the locally administered projects for consistency across the state. And then for our very complicated projects that have multiple alternatives that require either LEDPA and or public involvement, the scope and the cost estimate will be based on whatever the preferred alternative is for those projects. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a huge laundry list of factors that could play into the timing of when we'll reach this milestone. Every project is different. Every project has different issues and solutions that need to be worked through. I just want to draw your attention to our stakeholder engagement. Obviously, that's a huge part of our project development process. There also could be a lot of environmental issues that we'll find during the project development process. And also, I know we are very big on the complete streets, so any sort of recommendation associated with that will also play into a factor of when we complete this new milestone. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's 2 different documents that will establish our confidence scope and cost estimate. So for the scope side, we have the new project definition document, or the PDD. So this document will detail the scope that everybody agrees upon. It'll have the project's purpose and objectives, certain details associated with the project, such as the limits, your cross-sections, and it will generally be more specific than our STIP descriptions. As we like to say, our STIP descriptions are vaguely specific because we don't want to be handcuffed to slight changes and have to go through the amendment process to modify the scope. And so once all parties have agreed upon a scope and we have signed this document, we expect that the project scope will not change. Only minor tweaks or adjustments would be considered moving forward, unless if there is something drastic that we find in the project development process, then we could have to go back and revisit the project scope. I do want to point out just having personnel changes, whether it be from division staff, MPO staff, municipality staff, that's not a good reason to change the scope once we have established the project scope. And if we have to change the scope, and if this scope change has a large cost increase associated with it, we might have to revisit the schedule of that project and potentially others just to see if we can actually deliver this in the time that we need to. Next slide, please. And now the second step, the second form, is our cost verification memo. So this is a form that the division staff will provide. It details, and I apologize, the picture is a little small here. It details the cost per phase breakdown, and it will have a statement that is circled in red saying that this cost verification memo is associated with the CSCE milestone. The division engineer will sign off on this cost verification memo, and once he or she signs the CVM, then we have completed our CSCE milestone. Next slide, please. All right, so our goal, again, is to keep these projects that are scheduled for delivery moving forward. Currently, we have about 475 projects selected through prioritization that are scheduled for delivery as of mid-October of this year. Approximately 175 have achieved right-of-way plans complete, and this stage is past the confidence scope and cost estimate milestone. And since it is past that point, we have considered that it has reached this milestone. So that leaves approximately 300 projects left to examine to see where they are in their project development process and whether or not they have met this milestone. And majority of these 300 projects that are scheduled for delivery were picked up in old prioritization cycles, P3, P4, P5. So they've been hanging around for a while. Our expectation is that by September 30th of 2024, all 475 of these projects, so again, scheduled for delivery, selected through prioritization, will achieve their confidence scope and cost estimate milestone. And if they have not, there's potential for them to be reevaluated in T9. And certain exceptions could be made based on specific circumstances. Next slide, please. All right, so our next steps. As I said, we have about 300 projects that are currently under review. Our division staff is hard at work to determine whether or not we've hit this 25% plan and if the CSE has been achieved. And then my colleagues and myself have been going around to different organizations, spreading the word about this new milestone and the expectation associated with it. We will also be sending out letters to the local governments, informing them of this milestone and the September 2021 deadline. And I think this is the part. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's 2021.
Oh, I said 21, sorry, 2027, not in the past. September 2027, we're not time traveling here. Specifically for the French Broad River MPO, there are 3 locally administered projects that are scheduled for delivery, selected through prioritization, 2 of which have not met this milestone. So our lovely division staff here should be reaching out to you and working with you to determine scope, cost, etc. If you want to know specifics, the first one is ED 5965, which is the Deerview Road from Patton Avenue to Westmore Drive, MUP. And the second one is U 5019E, which is the Riverway Multimodal Network, Craven Street Bridge improvements over the French Broad River. Next slide, please. And I think this is it. Yes. Now there's time for any questions, if you may have them. Comments, concerns?
Any questions? I know we have one. Sir?
Yeah.
Has there ever been discussion about the realistic number of projects that should be in the system at any time? Right now, 475, wow.
You mean in the STIP as a whole?
Yeah.
Or?
Yes.
I don't think we've ever run those numbers. It really depends on the funding availability, how much money we have per STI bucket. So our statewide bucket, the regional buckets, and the 14 division buckets. So I don't think, you can have projects as small as $100,000 versus your $1 billion projects.
We have a lot of projects that literally got zeroed out in the last year, right? So they remain valid indefinitely, waiting on funding. Is that how it works?
So some of those came off.
Well, you did, right? 475 sounds like a lot to track and manage.
Yeah, I mean, I'll note that there has been some discussion in the prioritization work group, which is a group of MPOs, RPO, divisions, and other stakeholders from across the state, kind of wondering about that general question. Like, cost is one ceiling for this, but certainly there's only so many contracts that we're able to process and go through. But I don't think we've ever really gotten much deeper than that. But great question.
Thank you.
Is there a similar proposed process for DOT versus just LAP projects?
Yes, this is for all.
This is for all
projects.
Okay.
Yeah, the 475 is DOT administered and the locally administered.
So, but I guess makes sense for the consequence for a LAP project that it would go back through. But I don't think it's really fair to go there. And I did step away to use the restroom. So would the DOT project have to go back through prioritization too? Is that what you're saying?
They have not met this milestone, potentially. I mean,
That seems like an unfair consequence for like DOT not doing their part versus like local government.
Right. It certainly can have negative ramifications. I mean, we're willing to review each project by a case-by-case basis. And again, we're still in the process of figuring out where exactly those 300 are. So there very well could be majority of them already meeting this milestone. We just haven't finished that review yet.
Can you tell us who all is on the meeting that will be finalizing these documents, the cost information?
I'm sorry, the meeting to finalize the cost?
The certified scope and cost information, who all will be involved in finalizing this document to say yes?
That would be the division staff working with the MPOs and the municipalities to determine the scope. And then depending on, if it's locally administered versus NCDOT administered, going through the cost estimates, whether DOT is hiring the consultants, doing it in-house, or if municipalities are hiring a consultant, doing it in-house.
Yeah, I'm not specifically talking about the lab project, I'm talking about.
Oh, just the DOT project? Yes. It'd be our division staff.
Division staff and MPO, RPO, or just division staff?
I mean, there should be conversations with the MPOs. I think David wants to chime in here.
It's a joint effort, right? The idea is to ultimately agree on the scope before the project gets really far along in the process, right? So it's going to be a coordinated effort between the project management team, the divisions, and the planning organizations.
But, so to point out though, the actual approval is only required by the division engineer. Like whether or not that's done in coordination with other stakeholders, it should be done in coordination with other stakeholders. But the actual approval, as it's currently laid out, is solely the division.
Correct. As it is right now, yes, this is a pilot program. This is brand new. The idea is ultimately, yes, we want that collaboration, and ultimately, I think we'd love for the planning organization to sign off on this too, but let's start on it in-house. Let's start the process in-house rather than adding that requirement right now.
The reason why this is business and not informational is staff doesn't totally agree that, we are partners in developing these projects, I do want to note that this isn't anything against our division. I've very much appreciated the work of our divisions, the collaboration that we've had. And I will say in general, I think that this is a very, very, very positive step. The CSCE and PDD, whoever decided we needed more acronyms, needs to be investigated.
Not me.
But all in all, look, this is something that NCDOT and virtually everyone getting involved with transportation has been trying to wrap their arms around for almost a decade now. I mean, there have been years in which, first there was what was called the sticker committee that was formed. There's this committee that was formed of, if your project went up in cost by a certain amount, then you had to go to a committee and talk to them about why did your project go up in cost. I think what we found over and over, and the few times we got involved in that, is it wasn't that projects were changing massively in scope. It's more that the initial estimates that were being put on projects were extremely low. And one of the problems with that process was it almost incentivized gutting your project to try to not go to the sticker committee. And another fantastic effort. But I do think that in terms of trying to get, or for me, in terms of all of us trying to get our arms wrapped around the cost estimate issue that has been plaguing the tip and the sieve for years, knowing what is in or out of a project at as early a stage as you can is essential. I think something we've talked about over the years is one of the most difficult things in a lot of this is that a lot of projects are being programmed into the tip and sieve before we know what they really are. And so this document and this tool is attempting to play a part in fixing that. I think that is very, very important. However, in your agenda packet, we do have a letter of requesting that, moving forward with this process, the MPOs, the RPOs play a role in selecting what projects are funded. That plays a big role in local economic development, land use, things beyond just transportation. We hear it from everybody, and understandably, that when we decide to fund a project, we have expectations of what will be accomplished with that project. We have these safety targets that we just discussed, and I do think it's a misstep to have MPOs and RPOs play a role in programming, but not following up with the understanding of what is going to be in a project scope moving forward. We would like to accomplish those safety targets, not kind of say, we'd like to fund this project. We certainly hope it accomplishes some good stuff. And so I do think, we have a letter requesting that this process be revised to include MPO and RPO approvals as part of the CSCE and the PTD to help strengthen the partnership, to help build an understanding, especially in our region, of sometimes there are really tough choices about what has to be made with projects. And communicating that and building an understanding with our local leadership, I think is essential to a lot of success for our projects and strengthening that partnership again. So we do have a letter in the packet that we hope our TCC and board will consider.
So, yes, thank you. Why apologize? Go ahead.
I have another question for you, Teresa.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm sorry to cover this. Are you guys going to do an analysis of DOT projects, let's say it was programmed in P3, nothing's happened? I mean, I think most DOT people can name common pitfalls of why it hasn't moved along. But is there going to be an analysis of what those pitfalls are, and then how can SIP unit or DOT help address those issues? So if it's coordination with utilities and, maybe finding projects that were really successful in coordinating utilities and seeing what did they do that could be done here, or if it's a lap project and there's a cash flow issue for that local government, what can be done to help them to get that project done?
I don't know if they've been given the directive to, kind of catalog the reasoning, more of just, let's see where we are. I think David might have some more words to chime in here.
So with this effort, it's really to see where the projects are within the preliminary engineering process, right? essentially the idea and one of the reasons we're coming out today is, all right, we have an expectation of having this milestone within 2 years, which we feel is sufficient time to get all these projects that have been around for a while to that point, which is 25% plans. The idea is to keep these projects moving forward. Now, once you get beyond that point, the hope is that they will continue to move forward. And if there are delays encountered, we can look at those, you know. We do know across the state there are a lot of delivery issues, mainly a lot of which pertain to utility companies, as you mentioned. But that varies throughout the state. There may be other reasons too. But this effort is just basically, let's get through preliminary engineering, keep the project moving forward.
Yes, true. Yeah, so I think all in all, we do have a letter that's drafted. The main points are that we think that this is a really positive step overall. The TSCE and the PDD that's associated, fantastic step, and I think fixing some of the project development issues that have led to cost overruns and budgetary issues in the tip and stiff. But we are asking that MPO and RPO concurrence become part of this process in order to, again, communicate what's going on, build and strengthen those partnerships. To me, I think that's really critical to what we're trying to do here. Yes.
What I'm concerned about here is just the MPO at least. I mean, it has a lot on its agenda, and now we're going to add an approval process that might again involve us there. And two, how is this approval process if we support sending the letter and it's adopted? How is it going to delay, provide another level of approval, delay the department in moving forward with whatever projects are up there? I think unless the department proves that it's not going to be collaborative, moving to adding this level of approval in advance, I think could be a mistake. And so I just wonder, Tristan, talk to me about those issues.
I think in general, my main take is in terms of project delays, I don't think we can see much more than we have over the last several years. And I do think that the understanding of what goes into a project, helping to build the local buy-in, as we've seen with a number of projects throughout the region, where there hasn't been as much local buy-in with some of the specific elements of projects, we've lost elements that were critical to why a project was funded. And so to me, if I could imagine it, I would say that in terms of the approval, a lot of it could be consent agenda. If our local governments and member governments are happy with the project as it's moving forward, it wouldn't be too much of a list. If there are questions, concerns, as have come up with numerous projects around the region, I do think the CSCE serves as a good milestone to have those conversations, build understanding, especially about the limitations of some of our projects and the topography, and hopefully get to an understanding of what we want to accomplish and what we can accomplish with the projects that our region and our local government see as big enough priorities to fund.
If I can, I understand what you're saying. I think of several projects where there seems to have been a disconnect between what the department was moving forward and sort of the proposal that got put forward by local governments. There's no doubt about that. A lot of that has been a function of, just not having enough money, I guess, to do what was out there. Our meetings have just gotten so long. And you're adding a whole nother step to just, I mean, assuming that the secretary puts this forward, you're holding a whole nother step. And I just wonder if we've got the capacity to do it.
What do you say to this?
What do I say about the
issue,
NPO
right?
wanting to?
How do you see that?
I mean, NCDOT wants to collaborate with our local partners. I certainly hear that it could be an added step to the process. And as David mentioned, this is a pilot program. We're hoping to stick with it, you know, for our prioritization projects, because at the end of the day, we need to get these projects moving. You know, they're scheduled for the first 5, like the public expects them to be completed. But I'm also, you know, not a voting member. Don't have to sit through the meetings and be part of that process. But I certainly understand why the MPO wants to be more involved in the process.
Teresa, David, kind of a question. I hear what you're saying. I understand the concern about waiting for MPO board or RPO board approval for our meeting schedules. But like we handle the express designs, where hopefully the planning organization is always involved in the scoping of a project, like we handle NEPA and merger, where we sign off, could a model like that, sort of like the NEPA merger, where the meetings can be virtual, we're involved, we can sign off at that level instead of having to bring it to our board, and of course we would share that information with whatever local government the project actually is in.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just follow up on that really quick, that I think the express design is a great example, that, you know, sometimes there's great collaboration, there's too many meetings, in all honesty, and other times we're given express designs at the end of the process. So, for instance, right out here on New Lester Highway, we had a safety project to include median and side paths, do some intersection improvements. An express design was done, it came back, we got it at the end, and it was, you know, it really would be cool if you built a super street.
And it scored great in spot.
It scored great. It wiped out virtually everything. And the cost went up several times. And we had to kind of step in and say, this is unrealistic cost for a project you just lost because of budget overrun. And the lack of collaboration led to a document and a project that essentially had to be thrown out and started over. And that to me is a wasteful process. I think having some mechanism that ensures collaboration, especially the point of, from that point forward, the elements that are in there are basically in there. Trying to get things in or out are going to be more difficult. To me, that's a little uncomfortable if there's not a collaborative step in there.
Can I just say, as an elected official, we get pushback from our constituents on this, and they say, well, you have a say in it here, but we don't have a say in it at the end. I think that's where we're getting with this. We hold the responsibility to our constituents and the citizens, where you are scot-free from hearing that. Just, I'll be quiet because I'll say too much.
I would say we hear from you too.
I give him Tim's number all the time.
Yeah.
I hear from him, but.
Daniel has had his hand raised.
Yes. Hopefully this is on topic, but this is my first time hearing of this, so I'm just kind of digesting it all. So question kind of for Steph. How similar do you see this agreement to the, and then maybe for Tristan and Vicki too, what we already do in concurrence point 1, where we reach agreement on the scope of a project with our federal partners? This, to me, sounds a lot like DOT and the planning organizations getting aligned on the project before we pull in the other planning partners. It should seem like it's very similar.
So
The idea, great point. I think one thing to realize is not every project goes through the merger process, and those are for the bigger projects, but this would apply to all projects, right? And so that is one difference there. We've talked about, concurrence from the planning organization and how it would work, and if the decision is made to include it, one of the ideas would have it be very similar to the merger process, just like Vicki mentioned. So that is certain. So it may not necessarily have to come back to every MPO, be on every MPO agenda. But that, again, this is a pilot program. We're just rolling it out right now. There's still plenty of opportunity for discussion and comment and changes. But we do welcome the feedback.
Is this the first feedback that you guys have gotten from MPOs, or are you guys on a tour too right now, of, like reaching out to MPOs, or have you heard other feedback like this?
We've heard some feedback. We are on a tour, Teresa.
Yeah. Well, it's not something like your tour, but that's why I was asking.
Third of the state.
And I do know this will be a topic.
You do have a bus outside, right?
Could be nice.
I think you guys get the gold star for feedback, at least out of the presentations I've given thus far.
I do know that this will come up, be a topic at the FBRMPO quarterly meeting in December. We'll talk about there too. We haven't specifically, I think this is the first time where a letter has been presented or proposed to be sent to the Secretary to talk about or requirement for MPO approval of this. But generally, we've heard very positive things, as Tristan mentioned earlier, about this concept.
I have a question. If we approve this recommendation, what happens? How do you see it? What would happen then?
The letter would ultimately go to the Secretary, and it would be taken with other comments and feedback, and we'd have that discussion internally on figuring out how to move forward, and ultimately if we want.
Do we get invited to be in that conversation, or would y'all make that decision? Best judgment, or?
I mean, at this point, it would be ultimately probably a department decision, but we certainly consider the feedback, and that along with other feedback from other planning organizations as well.
How many have you been to give this presentation?
This is my fourth. I have one more MPO, and we're reaching out to the RPOs now. But my colleagues, I think, have probably spread this to 3 to 5 other MPOs. So we're making our way through the state.
You could have been here an hour earlier and taken care of 2 verses.
We didn't have the invitation.
Are there further questions?
Did you hear any of this feedback at those meetings? Anything like this?
My specific, this is, like David said, this is the first where a co-signed letter from the MPO has been proposed. I think the majority of the MPOs didn't really ask questions, which is fine. It's great that everyone seems to be very involved and paying attention.
This is a very vocal, like to get involved.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Whether it's safety issues or whatnot. Everybody has heard my reservations with this letter. I'm actually I'll vote for it, but I think there's some middle ground here. I shared this NPO in the past, and so I'm not in any way adverse to the engagement, but I'm just concerned about both the workload if everything comes to the MPO, meaning the board. Can this be dealt with on a different level? And let's see how the collaboration works. If the collaboration doesn't work, then, something much stronger may need to be in place. But, it's a pilot. So anyway, I'll be supportive of it, but I hope we can find some middle ground here. Our meetings are getting really tough.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just do want to know, sorry, Mayor, in the discussion with the MPOs, David and Teresa brought this to us a month ago, something like that. The comments from the Wilmington MPO were, we basically already do this. The divisions bring us, either what's the alternatives that are being considered or the different designs, and ask them for their approval as a way to get political buy-in and get local buy-in to make sure people are aware of how their projects are moving forward. To me, I thought that was an interesting comment that in some places, this process is already occurring.
I just wanted to, of course, I agree, more paperwork and more, all these different programs and, on the MPO when I'm watching, there's a lot of paperwork. The reality is that we're not against this new program or pilot program. And I want to make sure I'm on the same page here. All we're asking is that when you get down to the bottom line, we just want to be part of that process. And if we screwed that up, then by all means, kick us off that idea. But in the meantime, it's a pilot program. Let us be a part of that. And I think that let it go where it goes, right? But we're not against it. We want to do this, but we just want to have input.
That being said, as a member of the MPO and the RPO, I'm going to make a motion that we get on with it.
We will do that,
Yeah, TCC will get you there. I would propose changing this letter, because to me, I think what makes more sense, and going with the vein of Chuck's concerns, is that I think we would really care if something had to go back through prioritization, like that end step. And so maybe it needs to be, not that we're part of the PDD, that there's not necessarily concurrence with that, but that I like the bullet points underneath, because that's more vague, and how that looks could be kind of up to discussion with DOT. So I'm wondering if we kind of edit this letter so that it's not saying concurrence with that project document, but we're wanting these other things to happen in this overall process, and that we would want to be spoken to before anything has to go back through prioritization. And I'll do that as a motion.
I don't disagree with you. My only reluctance is that is slightly vague in terms of, because I think we're voting on this letter.
Okay.
And so unless we're going to edit it, we can punt on this as TCC. We can leave it up to the board. That is our right. But only just not having that language before us is my only reluctance there. But nonetheless, Jana has made a motion. Other people on the TCC would like to comment on it.
You didn't recognize that motion?
Well, so the board,
I jumped the gun. I'm just trying to move things along. I apologize for the break protocol.
We haven't followed the map. We got a map.
Sorry, we're running order. I ran off the screen. I tend to ignore speed limits and stuff, so sorry.
Does anyone else from the TCC have thoughts or like second Jana's motion?
I'm not 100% sure what I would be seconding. What is the exact edit to the letter?
I don't want to require concurrence. I want to require MPO involvement in the process, and then everything else stays the same.
But aren't we already in the process?
I'm more concerned about that last piece of like, if they're like, especially if it's a DOT project, if it's the last project,
The majority of DOT projects are submitted by NPOs and RPOs to get into the state. That's kind of, we represent our local government.
Yeah, I don't want them to have to go back through prioritization
Right.
for something like.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
So, I'll second, so we can start voting. Ricky, thank you. Again, so we are voting on this letter with Jana's incorporated edits. However, slightly unclear. No offense, Jana, it's just, we don't have it written down, that's all. All right, now, would you please help us go?
Wait, I'm sorry, are we going to vote on the first motion though?
We're not
getting the TCC part. We got off the map over there, sorry, we confused everybody. everybody.
Yeah, I just want to vote on that.
This vote actually included both groups, so, you know, you start to get it all done in one time.
There's no great way to have this joint meeting, but this is how we're going. So, Hannah or Davey.
So you're voting on the letter with changes?
With changes, that's right.
The TCC is.
The TCC is.
What if it's just like the original list? That makes
If I vote no.
sense.
Vote no, then you go back.
I'll vote no.
First and second, we gotta move through that first.
Yeah.
Right. We got a first and a second.
Under the board, the letter with Janet, or not.
Okay. Executive, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we're ready. Asheville, Lucy Crown.
No.
Art, Jessica Morris. Okay, Biltmore Forest, Terry Buckner. Buncombe County, William High. I'll approve. Thank you. Chloe Donahoe, Buncombe Transit.
Approve.
CPD, Daniel Sellers.
No.
Canton, Byron Hickok.
We can't hear you, Byron.
Well, I think you're pulling from November.
Byron's not on. Fletcher, Eric Russo. Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Public Transit, Jana Biana Cooley.
Aye.
Matt Manley, Hendersonville.
Aye.
Tim Cullen, Maggie Valley. Aye. Marcel Mason Bennett.
No.
Linda Sky RPO, Vicky Eastman. Vicky.
Aye.
Waynesville, Elizabeth Teague.
Aye.
Weaverville, James Eller. Woodson, Ricky Hurley.
No.
In CDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
No.
In CDOT Division 14, Steve Williams.
No.
Second tally.
The ayes have it.
I'd like to just remind everyone that when someone who was here at roll call has left the meeting, their absence is considered in the affirmative. Per the bylaw.
Good to know.
That is now a motion, in order to accept the board to accept the recommendation to TCC.
That is up to us to decide. Yeah, the board can make whatever.
So I'll make that motion
To accept.
to accept the TCC's recommendation.
Do we have a second? Second.
I would just like to approve the letter as written.
That's a different motion.
So we got, that'll be a.
Well, just vote against this motion and we'll go on.
Or we could have some discussion about it right now.
Well, before we, that's right. We have to have a motion to have.
Yeah, we got a first and we got a second.
And now we got it on the table.
I mean, I'd like to know where DOT, our, division staff sees where this puts us. Because we deal with you guys more regularly than we do the state version.
Yeah.
So is this gonna be a big burden and a lot of pressure on you guys to get with us or them to bring this forward? I mean, how do y'all see this moving us forward here? I mean, we all know this needs to be done. We all know as soon as this is done in 27, we're gonna say, holy cow, where will this money come from? We know that. So in saying all that, where is that putting you guys? I mean, do you feel like this is a necessary for the MPO to be involved in this, or is it gonna move forward with y'all handling it just fine.
Right. So, I guess I could speak for Wesley, the Sugar Mills River, but that wouldn't be fair. For our division, we work really hard to make sure that we're hearing what's being said and incorporating as much as we can. But we've all seen scope creep, and we've all seen what it does for projects. And then we've all seen folks latch on to things that they really, really, really want. And as long as this doesn't become weaponized from either side to where this becomes something that creates an impasse and the project stalls, which case if it ends up having to be reprioritized, that may be the stick that keeps that from happening. I don't really see it as a big deal. In fact, if we all sign off, I mean, the reality is if we sign off at 25%, we may still have to come back and talk to each other because 25% may just not be enough. Because there's always things that pop up as we design, whether it's a hydraulic issue, a structure issue, a right-of-way issue, utility, name it, where we may have to come back and go, well, we really, really wanted this, but this is now a problem. And I would much rather us be able to come to a consensus on it so that we control that and keep it from ballooning. Because when it balloons, eventually we can't afford it, and then the can gets kicked down the road. And we don't like that. We like to deliver more. And so if we're agreeing, I don't think it's that big a deal to have that step personally. If it becomes one, it's still the DOT step, so we can always go back to the drawing board.
I don't think Division 14 feels much different than what Tim said. I'm sorry. But the only time I see it maybe becoming an issue.
You're all about this, aren't you?
Yeah. Tore up. And if we were pushing up against the deadline to submit a cost estimate, we were having to wait on a board meeting for an approval. That'd be the only time I would see it being an issue.
Yeah, and I think to Chuck's point, if you can make it somewhat more procedural, where it's less than, if we can do it in some way that everybody's comfortable with that, where, it's not having a vote, and then have a sign or argue over it for hours and hours and days and days, or meeting after meeting. I would hope that we iron most of that stuff out before we ever get to that point. Because, yeah, there's 475 projects, but not all 475 are in Division 13. Our group of projects in the division, still of that gets divided down to what's in the RPO and what's in the MPO. So it starts becoming a little more manageable at that point.
Yes, that's fine. So to clarify, we have a motion to make changes to the letter. If we vote in the affirmative, we make changes. If we vote no, then we have an option for another motion to vote.
Who's doing the vote?
So to be clear, and Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, we would be changing the part in bold requiring MPO and RPO concurrence to maybe MPO and RPO involvement. Is that good word, I think?
Anything on the fly, so again, we vote no on this, just do the original letter. So, go for it, fine.
Ashok Kimroni. Asheville Sage Turner.
I need clarity, y'all. So this is a yay vote is in support of the letter with the changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, yay.
Black Mountain Archie Portiller.
Aye.
DOT Division 14 Chuck McGrady.
Aye.
Buncombe County Drew Ball.
Aye.
Buncombe County Parker Sloan. Canton Dr. Ralph Hamlet.
No.
Flat Rock Emily Whitmire. Fletcher Jim Player.
Aye.
Haywood County Kevin Ensley.
Aye.
Henderson County Sheila Franklin.
Aye.
Springdale, Jennifer Hensley.
No.
Laurel Park, George Banta.
Aye.
Madison County, Matt Wetchell.
No.
Maggie Valley, Mike Evelyn.
No.
Mills River, Shannon Daunt.
No.
Montreat, Tom Widmer. Rural Transit, David White.
Aye.
Urban Transit, Susan Bean.
Aye.
Waynesville, Anthony Sutton.
No.
Weaverville, Catherine Cordell. And Woodfin, Jim McAllister.
Quickly before I vote, if we know that so many people are gonna be gone by the time we get to big voting issues, maybe we consider moving those up on the agenda. I vote no.
Thank you.
Mayor McAllister, do you have a vote?
No.
Oh, no, oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you.
The ayes have it, the motion carries.
How many? Oh.
11 to 7.
So we will do the letter with the change.
Absolutely, thank you, folks. And just to note, normally we have business first. It's hard to get guests like Bill and other folks. We don't know exactly when they'll be.
So we have the next discussion is a much larger discussion.
Can I make a suggestion? I don't think everybody knew that not voting is a yes. Maybe remind everybody of that.
Yes.
As we get the new members on board.
Right. Right.
Sorry.
Are you done? It's like a mic
So if you're not here, you are not counted.
But I think it's clarified that, maybe it probably.
That's for both for TCC and TAC.
So that's being said.
Yeah, if you're on screen and you don't respond, are you voting in the affirmative?
Yeah. So, we have a much larger discussion. I propose that we take a 5-minute break before we have that discussion.
Is that okay with everyone? Some of us think it's 11.
Yeah, so they will get 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 10.
I-40.
You're muted.
Oh, so sorry, folks. Let's run it back.
Take two.
Yeah, no, take two.
So the Marine Corps Romania have already heard this.
No, for those online, we're gonna be kind of quick. Don't only push. A little bit of background, on I-40 and express lanes tolling. This has been discussed since 2018. It was incorporated into the MPO's congestion management process as something to consider to help alleviate congestion on I-40, specifically between I-26 and going out to Haywood County at exit 27. In 2024, the MPO board adopted a letter of support for MPO to look at and study the feasibility of express lanes on I-40 as part of the planned widening. And pretty much we've been talking about it since September. And we've been having guests from MCDOT talk about that. Something I wanted to make very clear to folks that I think in some of my conversations clarity is helpful. What decision is actually being requested today? And to me, is how does the MPO want the I-40 widening to be considered in this round of prioritization? As a highway widening or as a widening with and for express lanes? To be clear, so I-40, the widening from exit 44 to exit 27 is in prioritization this round. That decision was made in September. The decision is, what do we want NCDOT to evaluate? Do we want them to evaluate a kind of traditional widening of I-40, or do we want them to evaluate an express lane project on I-40? That's the question we're trying to get to today. As a reminder, this project's been around for a long time. It was identified in the CTP in 2007. It's been submitted into prioritization since P5, roughly 2018. It's been submitted in 3 different sections. Most recently, we just submitted the whole gobbledygook. To note also, the CMP, that is, when we look at travel time reliability, and the last time we looked at that, this was the most unreliable section of interstate in our region that doesn't have a project attached to it. And in discussion, alleviating I-40 has been a priority of both Haywood County as well as Division 14. Also to point out, this map just shows freight volumes, and I just wanted to highlight the routes that have more than 5,000 trucks per day. This is our big freight movement through the region. And so that is going up from South Carolina. To note, the ports that are closest to us are Charleston and Savannah, and going out I-40 towards Tennessee and the Midwest.
Point of clarification, in most places, 18-wheeler is not allowed in toll lanes. Would they be in this project? Do we know?
They're going to talk about that. They're going to talk about that. I've already seen it, that's why I'm telling you that. They're going to talk about that.
Thank you.
So something that was asked for us to talk about is a little bit on the funding. Just as a reminder and prioritization, there's 3 different tiers: statewide mobility, regional impact, and division needs. Statewide mobility is the first tier that is programmed and scored, and the projects that are eligible are interstate routes on the strategic highway system. I will note for us, large airports, and those are really the main things that are being considered as statewide mobility tier. Just to highlight that, this is a map. This is all of the roads in our region that can compete as a statewide mobility tier. We cannot, so I think part of the discussion was, could this consideration impact US and NC routes and funding for them? In general, no. Statewide mobility, those are the roads that are eligible. I-40, 26, 240, 2374 in Haywood, and a little bit of 25 in Henderson. To note, we do have a cascading policy at the MPO, so projects that don't get funded at statewide mobility tier technically can be cascaded to the regional impact tier. that requires specific MPO approval to do that. And the thing I would note is looking at projections, Region G, which is where our regional impact projects compete, is estimated to have 186 million. We got our staff mathematician. That is not enough to cover I-40 wide. Right. So just to be clear on what the section of I-40 would be competing with, there you go. Again, what we're talking about is what form we want this project to look like and how we want it to be considered. With us to provide a short summary on some of what has been shared and discussed is David Roy and Carly Swanson. So folks, please take it away.
All right. Hey, good afternoon. Can everybody hear us?
Yeah, thank you for sticking with us. Yes.
Excellent. Well, and we apologize for not being there in person today. We've been juggling meetings. We had our Turnpike Authority Finance Committee and board meetings today, so we just couldn't make it all work. But again, as Tristan mentioned, wanted to just kind of share basically a summary of what we discussed at our meeting last month, and certainly be available to answer any additional questions or discussion that the group may want to have. Tristan, do you want me to share my screen? Is that easiest?
Yes. Yes, please do.
All right. Great. And I'll turn it over to Carly to let her provide a little bit of the background and project overview first.
Yeah, just to confirm, can you all see our screen presentation?
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Hey, Carly?
Yeah.
This is Vicki. At the RPO meeting, you were kind of hard to understand. It sounds like you're kind of happening again. If you could get closer to the mic, it's probably good.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
The screen. Is this better? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm not going to go too much into the history here, just because I know Tristan covered it briefly before these slides, but we started our work on this after the Land of Sky RPO and the French Red River MPO requested that NCDOT and Turnpike look at express lanes on the I-6054 widening project. As a reminder, for state law, for toll projects to move forward, they must be approved by the planning organization. And so for us, we're not here to advocate for tolling, but simply, provide the information to help you all make an informed Stantec was contracted to provide a sketch level, which is considered a level 1 traffic and revenue forecast for the project, with various scenarios that served as a basis. So we had a base case and an alternative case. So for these two cases, we had two scenarios, one express lane in each direction, two express lanes in each direction, and the two express lanes would assume that large commercial vehicles are permitted to use the express lanes and subject to higher toll rate multipliers. Turnpike also prepared a high-level financially feasibility analysis for the project using those traffic and revenue forecasts. So just as a reminder on what express lanes are. So express lanes are considered separate lanes in a highway corridor where drivers can choose to enter the lanes and pay a variable toll for a more reliable travel time. So as you see on the picture here, you have the non-toll general purpose lanes, and then there's a delineator, a buffer, and then you have the express lanes that drivers can choose to use the lanes for a reliable travel time. In North Carolina, on all of our toll facilities, there is a non-tolled option. So for express lanes, those general purpose lanes will always remain non-tolled. And so ultimately, the revenue earned helps fund the project construction, operations, and maintenance costs. And then we presented these earlier, but as a reminder, North Carolina is not alone in both implementing express lanes projects, but looking at express lanes projects on different corridors. More than a quarter of states across the U.S. have express lanes projects in different phases. So we took some case studies of express lanes, and those are the boxes that you see here. So just to briefly walk through those, we have the I-394 express lanes project in Minnesota, where the number of crashes on the corridor decreased a little more than 5%. We have the I-95 express lanes in Florida, Within the first 6 years of the express lanes operating, the fatal crashes on the corridor decreased nearly 16%. On the I-405 express lanes in Washington State, the corridor carries around 23% more vehicles during weekday peak periods, but drivers are saving an average of 11 minutes in the express lanes. And then the I-405 in Washington, 8% of the accounts used express lanes more than 40 times per year. 48 used the express lanes just once. And then briefly, I'll walk through the project one more time. So the project we evaluated here would add around 16 miles of express lanes from exit 27 to exit 44 on I-40. As a reminder, what was discussed earlier, the general lighting project previously was broken into 3 sections for prioritization, but for this express lanes project, it would be one project, not 3 sections. And then next, I'll turn it over to David.
So again, just to quickly recap the results of the analysis. Again, as Carly mentioned, looking at the 2 scenarios, 1 express lane in each direction, as well as 2 express lanes in each direction. We tried to boil this down, as we talked about at the last meeting, to terms that are consistent with how the project would be scored as part of P8 prioritization. So looking at $2025, for example, project financing costs for the 1 express lane option anticipated to be approximately $700 million. With toll revenue forecasted, we would expect to bring a portion of that to help support construction of the project, thereby reducing the gap or the state required funds that would be needed to construct the project. So in the 1 express lane scenario, we anticipate that gap to be around $475 million. In the 2 express lane scenario, again, the 2 express lanes would include the introduction of commercial vehicles in the express lanes, obviously a higher cost estimate by adding the additional capacity, but also higher revenue forecast, thereby bringing more financing capacity to the table to help support construction of the project. So very similar funding gap in the 2 scenarios. And again, it is not at all unusual for a project not to be 100% supported by toll revenues from day one. In fact, no project in the state of North Carolina has ever fully supported itself through toll revenues. There has always been a funding gap that the department was covered to help support construction of that project. And that's very true across the country, particularly for a single asset facility such as this would be. And again, why does the financing capacity, the funding matter for P8 prioritization? Well, as we talked about, again, part of a major part of the scoring component of prioritization is, of course, benefit cost or cost to the state. So by reducing that cost to the state, a project could score higher in prioritization and thereby get funded for construction faster than it may otherwise be without that support. Again, I know all of this is kind of a recap from our last meeting, but wanted to just, again, touch on bonus allocation briefly. Bonus allocation is that mechanism that the General Assembly put forward a number of years ago to encourage regions, MPOs, RPOs across the state to identify alternative funding solutions for some of their projects. In this case, obviously, we're talking about the potential of tolling. When that alternative funding is brought to the table to help reduce the cost to the state, bonus allocation is made available for the region up to $100 million per project. In any scenario that was analyzed with this project, it would be expected that the full $100 million in bonus allocation would be made available. And of course, those funds could be used on other eligible projects in the counties in which the project is located. And just to recap the illustrative schedule that kind of we put together to give an idea of what may be possible if this were to move forward again as a express lane project and is scored and ultimately funded in this round of prioritization. We are looking at the department adopting the next STIP, the 2028-2037 STIP, sometime in summer or fall of 2027. That is when the project would be funded to begin preliminary engineering, We would anticipate a 2 to 3 year project development and NEPA period, followed by a 5 to 6 year construction period. So you would potentially be looking at a project open to traffic in the mid 2030s. So of course, even in the most best case scenario, this project would still be basically a decade away from opening to traffic. So just again, in summary, and Carly kind of touched on the key point there, the department, the Turnpike Authority are not advocating for a particular path forward for this project. By state law, tolling is a local decision. It is one tool in the toolbox that could be used, leveraged to help accelerate certain projects, but certainly that doesn't mean it is the right answer for every project and every region. Our role is to support you and your decision-making process to determine what the best path forward is for this project and the region. I know since our last conversation, we did share with staff that traffic and revenue memo that served as the basis for this analysis, as well as the links to the surveys and studies that Carly mentioned in her part of the presentation. But we're certainly happy to answer any questions or continue the discussion. And Tristan, that'll really wrap us up. But again, happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for David or Carly?
I have a general question.
Yes.
So moving forward, if we did approve the scenario that we're working with these express lanes, it will still have a community impact assessment, and it will take a look at equity and things that concern us with.
This is just the first step, well, it's the third step, but this will go on for 10 more years of us having discussion.
Yeah, just really quick, I think something we've discussed in a few meetings is this is really the first point of decision, and it's, I think the way it's been put to me is it's really, really difficult to get into the details on a lot of those things unless we have a project in the state. Then that's kind of the main thing we need in order to unlock those engineering funds to really dig into.
And from my understanding, we can change our mind at any time.
And it will include all of the planning and permitting that a federal funded highway project requires.
So there's a question I had, because, I must have missed the last meeting, so we decided to do 1 lane or 2 lanes. Is this automatically going to get a third, the 3 lanes? Or does that, so right now we have 2 lanes going through there. So they're going to widen it to 3. This would widen it to 5 or 4, depending on how you want to do that. Or does it get rid of the 3rd lane?
No, so right now the typical cross section is 2 lanes in each direction. There are the climbing lanes that are also there, but in general, do we add more lanes that are more free flow lanes, or would the addition be more lanes, or add more lanes, but those new lanes are express lanes?
All right, so you would stay with the 2 lanes, but you would add express lanes is what we're looking at.
So this isn't a complete, this would not be a complete toll lane going in that direction. It would be adding toll lanes.
Right.
With the possibility of adding additional free flow lanes as well.
Just to clarify, DOT's submission of this project adds 2 lanes or 1?
The current typical section that we scored on for a cost verification memo was a 6-lane typical section, 3 eastbound, 3 westbound lanes.
Okay. Which we have part of the way in the climbing lane.
So, and my understanding is if you do express lanes, if you do 1 express lane, it does not allow for tractor trailers to participate. If you do 2 express lanes, that would allow tractor trailers to have the option to participate.
Right. So, and we're not deciding that today.
Right, that's down the road. But
So option 2 doesn't answer that question today.
Correct. We don't have to answer that question.
But option 1 will never answer the question.
It'll take the question 2.
to be clear, we're not voting on whether or not this road should, in our opinion, be expanded. We're voting on whether or not we believe toll lanes should be added as a part of that.
Right. Does this question that you're asking today, give us a quicker, 2035, if we say no to this and we don't do this, it takes 2045? Or the toll lanes make it a little bit easier to get this extra lane in and all that?
Great question. So we did compile a simple pros and cons. I do think one of the main reasons we're looking at this is, in general, looking at express lanes or toll lanes versus just new general purpose lanes, is that those projects tend to score better because it reduces the cost of those projects while giving basically the same benefit. So that's a big part of why that's being looked at. It will almost definitely score better in prioritization, give it a better chance of being funded. And there's other things as well. I think David and Carly have noted that with the financing available for express lanes or toll lanes, there is some ability to move those projects faster, although to Lucy's point, there still are environmental factors.
Well, there's a lot that goes into this.
Right.
And I'll say, I'll piggyback on that and just say, I've been on this board. Chuck may have been here longer than me, but I'm looking around, I've been here 10 years on this board. They've been trying to get I-40 expanded since 2007.
Right.
And we're just now getting to this phase where we're at now, saying, hey, look, this could be a better option for us because we're not getting any traction the other way.
And I will say this, it needs to be done. So, we don't need to wait 40 more years.
I agree. I'm afraid if we don't do this now, my 2 cents worth, if we don't do this now, somebody's going to be sitting in these same chairs, well, probably not these same chairs, but somebody's going to be sitting in this room probably 20 or 30 years from now. Well, I say it because we replaced these chairs about 3 times since I've been here, so, but 20 or 30 years from now, somebody's going to be having this same conversation all over again, I'm afraid.
Yeah, is a motion in order to just submit the project as a widening that includes managed lanes? Would that be the motion we're looking for?
First, we look for the TCC and then the board.
But okay.
We're doing, again.
I know, I get it. So the TCC makes a recommendation and we're.
As well.
I am going, this is from the TCC side, someone who drives Haywood County to Henderson County every single workday. I move forward with option 2 for TCC, and MPO can continue discussion. Right there.
All right, the TCC has a motion in front of it to approve option 2. Just for clarification, option 2 is to submit the project as a widening that includes managed lanes. So this is just for the TCC to recommend to the board option 2.
And then the board will answer as well.
Okay, I get it. Daisy, would you work? All right. No, we did have a second from Lucy. Okay. All right. All right, Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Second. Buncombe County, William High. Approved. Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Aye.
Fletcher, Eric Rufo. Flat Rock, Pat Christie.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson. Henderson County, Autumn Ratcliffe.
Aye.
Upper Country Public Transit, Jenna Van Cooley.
Aye.
Hendersonville, Matt Manley. Maggie Valley, Sam Collins. Aye. Marsville, Nathan Bennett. Mills River, Michael Malachek. Vicky Eastland. Aye. Elizabeth T. Ricky Hurley. Aye. NCDOT Division 13, Doug Phillips. Aye. NCDOT Division 14, Steve Williams.
Abstain.
That's everybody.
How do your bylaws treat abstention?
Exactly that, is that, Steve, well, I don't think we.
So you cannot vote?
Can we expressly list who did not vote?
We do now.
We do now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were here, you're against. So then, you were part of the roll call, and you departed.
Kevin was online.
And to be clear, it's whatever the motion is. And so it's not obvious, but that's how it works. You are counted in the affirmative unless you are here to vote against it.
That's if you were in roll call at the very beginning.
The roll call at the beginning.
So, yes.
Is the motion now in order to, support the recommendation of the TCC, submit the project as a widening that includes managed lanes?
So, agree, make a motion.
Discussion.
Second, and then we'll have discussion.
Let Shannon have.
Yes.
I just think it's a great idea to get it moving.
I want to say two things. One, I obviously hadn't done enough homework in our last meeting to be qualified. Since then, I assure you that I have. Read every document submitted, including those from the Federal Highway Administration. I've talked to friends that I lived through toll projects in 2 different states. And I took it to my town council, and they've asked me unanimously to vote no, specifically because creating a have versus have not monetarily is not a good solution. Thank you.
Yes. I've made the motion to support the recommendation, but I don't think we have to make a decision right now on the managed lanes. In some ways, this whole thing is about a strategy for getting a movement on a project. What that project will ultimately look like, I won't be here. But it's got a bunch of stages still to go. But if we want to start this thing, this is probably the way to do it. And that's why I'm supportive of the motion. I'm undecided on the managed lanes, but I don't need to decide that right now.
Any other discussion?
Anthony, this is Kevin Ansley. From somebody that drives that probably all my life, I'm definitely for it. And it's not haves or haves nots. It's getting to destination A to B as quick as you can with what you can afford. And I think that we need to be able to move throughout our county. If we don't do this, it'll be generations before that's built, and that's just unacceptable. So if this is a way to move it forward, like Chuck said, to get the conversation started, I'm all for it. So that'd be my comments.
Thank you, Kevin. I too drive from Haywood County to Long Shoals Road every day, and the last 2 weeks have been horrific. We're talking an hour and a half that normally takes 35 minutes. So we're adding 5 more hours, well, actually, yeah, 5 more hours for our week that we could have been in one of these meetings.
10 years ago, the traffic we saw on that stretch of highway and the problems that we had with it then, and that included especially in the summertime on Friday afternoons and Sunday evening. And then you look at where we're at this year, can you imagine where it's going to be in 10 years? This thing isn't in the process of being completed or done. It's going to be where you won't need an extra lane because there's going to be no traffic. Everything will be built. Right.
And for those without imaginations, y'all just adopted an MTP with those projections.
I will say that the reason I support this is for the safety side of issues. You see this statistically, it reduces fatalities. And also the carbon footprint of that stretch will actually go down. So that's my 2 How do you figure that? There was a study in our packet that showed that because of idling traffic, it increased part of.
The math was.
Part of
Yeah,
the
okay.
staff.
I get you.
Because you saw that the drive times increased there, so it actually increased.
The decrease in fatalities and injuries was all over the board, depending on which study you look at.
Right.
I call the question, Mr. Chair.
Perfect, thank you.
Call.
We ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Asheville, Sage Turner. BOT Division, or Black Mountain Arch Tiller. BOT Division 14, Chuck McGrady.
Aye.
Buncombe County, Drew Ball.
No.
Buncombe County, Parker Sloan.
No.
Canton, Dr. Ralph Hamlet.
Aye.
Flat Rock, Emily Whitmire.
No.
Fletcher, Jim Player.
Aye.
County, Kevin Inslee.
Aye.
Henderson County, Sheila Franklin. Aye. Hendersonville, Jennifer Hensley. Aye. Laurel Park, George Banta.
Aye.
Madison County, Matt Wexel.
Aye.
Madison Valley, Mike Eastland.
Aye.
Mills River, Shannon Dawn.
Aye.
Long Street, Tom Whitmer. Rural Transit, David White. Urban Transit, Susan Bean. No. Waynesville, Anthony Sutton.
Aye.
Weaverville, Catherine Cordell. And Woodfin, Jim McAllister.
No. So 16-5.
The motion carries. You guys have it.
Thank you, everyone. That was better than it. I don't think. I forgot my word. Okay. DOT Division 13 update.
You got it? Yeah. I'm just glad. A lot of, Doug, I've already talked some today, so, and I've got my coffee, so y'all might be in trouble.
No more than 45 minutes.
We're in it now. We're already in. We know that we were going to have traffic in the
On 4700 I-26, the Blue Ridge Parkway Bridge, removal of the old structure should be complete first week in December, making significant progress on the grading around exit 35. Also, the other projects on I-40, they've completed the substructure or near completed the substructure of the railroad bridges. The lanes are still narrowed. They're moving along through the processes. Several resurfacing projects are coming to the point of the year where we won't be doing as much, but still moving forward with what we can. Also, we do want to give update on some improvements we've been doing on 251. We recognize the public interest in the safety improvements along NC 251, and it's a corridor that serves both destination traffic, including commercial and construction vehicles, and some of our most vulnerable users, such as bicyclists. While some of the suggestions we've received would require legislative action beyond our current authority, we are actively implementing several measures within our scope to enhance safety. First of all, speed limit reductions. We've had ordinances approved to reduce the speed limits through Woodfin and other sections of 251. Those sections total about 16 miles in length. We've installed bicycle signage. From what I understand, that is complete or nearing completion, adding warning signs at every intersection with additional signage at approximately 1 mile interval in between intersections. We have temporary striping in place with permanent striping planned for spring due to seasonal limitations. And we have ongoing evaluation of that corridor. We're reviewing additional safety measures that include analysis of runoff road crash data to identify further opportunities for improvement. And we also appreciate the continued engagement from the community and local partners, and we remain committed to making this corridor safer for all users. And as far as project development, that list is largely unchanged. If anybody has any questions, we'll take those now.
Thank you. It's meeting watching the Parkway Bridge come down. So I get to watch it while you sit in your car. I get to watch it while I sit in the car. Thank you for the safety. I made a promise that I would say Mr. Hill made every meeting. Position 14, I think.
All right. Keep this just as brief as I can, just in the interest of time. Haywood County construction site obviously is bridges and slowing people down getting to Asheville. There is one that was added, Coleman Mountain Road, about halfway down the list there. It says 0%, but Cody told me that they had mobilized for construction on that bridge, so that'll be starting quickly. MPO has been sending out lane shift notices, lane closure notices for I-40. We don't anticipate any more for a while as far as the shifts go for those bridges. The I-26 project in Henderson County is mostly complete. It's just the punch list items that we have to go through, and that goes for Highland Lake Road as well. That's for the most part completed, just tying up loose ends. I do realize that the Acosta Trail date there we passed that. We just haven't set a new date, and the delay on that is mostly from Helene damage on the construction side of that. And that's all on construction, unless somebody has questions. Anybody? Project development side, kind of what Doug said, it's the same list you've been seeing for a while since we haven't been able to add any projects through the STIP. So any questions that you have, please let us know. And you can find these on the St. Croix River website on the agenda and news page.
I'd like to just quickly, we have to mention this in the Atlanta Sky meeting, but the Johnson Creek project, we're pushing with the warmer temperatures we're still seeing to potentially get that into a temporary roundabout phase by the end of the year. It'll be a tight window, but that's the goal at this moment. So you may see that in place in the next month.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Any questions for Division 14? We have the honor of having Daniel into the room.
Yes. I'm not gonna show the newsletter, I'm just gonna talk about it quickly. We have one new traffic forecast starting up in the area, and this is Sweet Creek Road project. So if you or any of your staff get contacted to provide comments by the consultant who's working on that, please do. Your comments are very important. This is the first project to use your newly adopted NCP and travel demand model. And so sometimes we get feedback from the consultants about if anything needs to be tweaked. The only other update I'll point out is the 2024 average annual daily traffic counts were released, all of 25. And so there's a bit of a comparison in the newsletter comparing your 24 to 22 data. Your data is predominantly collected on even years, so 22, 24, 26. And then just for comparison, some airport ridership and some train ridership data are there also to talk about what the 2-year growth rates have been like.
Nashville is the third largest airport in North Carolina. Right?
They're busy for
Third busiest. Third busiest. Not largest. Third busiest.
That changes sort of month to month. It's pretty close there between third and fourth.
That's what they can count. Federal highway update?
No, it's the federal highway.
Still don't worry. All right. Well, that's still in line with the federal highway. And subcommittee work groups report.
The subcommittee reports are in your packet. I'll let you have at that. I do really quickly just want to go through, if my computer will go along with it. So just a quick annual summary. The big thing is, first of all, I want to thank all of our TCC and board members. Our attendance has been fantastic. When I started here, I think we were averaging about 5 or 6 board members attending a meeting. We are up almost 3-fold. and continuing to rise. We have more than 16 members per meeting over the last year. Thank you guys. I know this is a lot of time, a lot of work, but it wouldn't be possible without all of you. TCC, you're down a little bit from last year, but still very high, much higher than it's been in the past. So thank you all. Our annual participation trophies. Thanks to all of you who attended all of the meetings this year. And I think last year we only gave out 2 participation trophies. Sorry, the PowerPoint slide is all you get. No stickers. No, we'll work on stickers for next year. But thank you all to our board members. We had a number of board members that attended all of our meetings this year. Thank you. TCC members, thank you as well for your participation. I did want to note that, you know, with all the long meetings we've had, we've also done I would say this has been the busiest year I've had in my 11 years at the MPO. We passed our 25-year plan and worked on that this year. We adopted our Safe Streets for WNC plan. We adopted a new TIP that included a number of difficult decisions. The TIP used to be fun. It used to be, hey, you get a project, you get a project. The last 5 years has been difficult decisions, and I know that is very taxing on a lot of our decision makers, as well as on CDOT. So thank you all for participating in the hard decisions that we have to make. We also went through socioeconomic projections, first having to explain why transportation planners need to talk about things like housing and future growth projections. But that plays a big role in a lot of things, and I think that really shows the cohesion between, especially a lot of what's done by our TCC members at the planning level and how that impacts things in transportation. We've also had a number of local planning efforts that this MPO has supported move forward: the Woodfin to Weaverville Greenway study, the Patton Avenue Corridor study, the Buncombe County Pedestrian Plan. And as a reminder, we have our call for planning projects open now, and supporting our locals to get better planning done. As the AMPO executive director said, we need good planning on the front end so that we can have projects that are deliverable and move more quickly. And that's something we'll keep supporting and promoting. Other accomplishments, the programming of more than $400,000 each in 5310 and CHART funds for our region's transit systems, working through the prioritization process, updating the MPO's Title VI plan. To note, I took that one off the agenda this month as a follow-up, so we could have had a longer meeting. I do want to thank NCDOT for their work on continuing to update our TCC and board on what is North Carolina's largest transportation improvement project, I-26 connector. Also, I think it's worth noting that this year has been hard in more ways than just bureaucratic requirements and planning. This has been a very difficult year. Last year, when we had this joint meeting, I think the only item was talking about Helene repairs. So I do want to thank all NCDOT, all of our local governments. There's still a lot of work ahead, but all in all, I think the recovery, the improvement, sometimes it can be hard to see, but in all honesty, like when I have people come visit us that we see once or twice a year, they have been amazed at how far we've come. And we can't do that without the hard work of NCDOT and our local governments. Thank you all for a busy, productive, albeit challenging year, and we look forward to continuing to work through that at the MPO. Sandy, do you want to give a quick TDM?
Sure. So just a reminder, our TDM program is Transportation Demand Management. I serve all 5 counties, Snow Mountain commuting, to build momentum in the community around transportation options that reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality. So this is just your review for this program. We met with over 50 different community organizations to promote TDM strategies, tabled at several community events, including with Asheville on Bikes, with AB Tech, and with UNCA. Have given presentations to a number of different groups, including several Chamber of Commerce groups, Goodwill, Buncombe County Reentry Council, and more, and have done quite a few pedestrian counts on the new Acoustic Trail, and I collect park and ride data from all over the region. Have also created a lot of new programs. Bicycle Commuting 101 is something that I've done as a lunch and learn at several workplaces. I filmed a PSA with the City of Asheville Police Department on bicycle safety. We completely rebranded the Go Mountain Commuting and built a new website around that, as well as consolidated some social media accounts. Organized events for the Week Without Driving with Susan here from Mountain True, which was a really great success this year, and also presented at the Public Transit Association Conference for North Carolina. And then, as you remember, if you were here back in May, we did Strive Not to Drive Week, which was the biggest it's ever been this year. We had over 17 events in 3 counties with 19 different community partners. And we had ceremonial proclamations declared for Strive Not to Drive Week in both the City of Asheville and Waynesville. And then finally, we developed a new program this year called Commute Friendly WSC, which is a certification program for local businesses, nonprofits, government organizations, and campuses. And we had just the kickoff for that on November 3rd this year. We had representatives from over 30 local businesses in attendance at the kickoff event. And 3 businesses and now 1 college campus have already applied to participate in that program. So big shout out to our 3 breweries. New Belgium, Sierra Nevada, and Highwire are going to be participating, as well as Marshall University. So very excited about that. That is my summary of the year.
All right, Ada?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't have the slides handy, but could you just provide a quick update?
Sure, I'll wing it. Stay Across the School is another adjacent program to TDM. We work with schools and community groups to get kids more active, walking and biking and rolling and dancing and whatever gets them moving around, encouraging more active transportation throughout the region. I had a lot of statistics on my slides, but I'll try to help you out. We had in May, these are just walking events and biking events. In May, we had Bike to School Day. 7 schools participated in that. Then we had National Walk to School Day in October, and we had 10 schools participating in that. And then I just recently launched something called Sparking the Movement, which is a walk series involving glow sticks and fun glam items for kids to wear on their walk to school. And so we're at school number 3 for that in January, and that will be at Clyde Elementary School. So if anyone would like to participate in that, that'd be a walk at school because they don't have great infrastructure for going to school. Amazing, here we go. And then over the summer we had kind of informal summer strolls, which anyone can participate in that, hint, hint. So I'll have 5 or 6 more of those this summer, basically getting folks together in the community, walking around. This year we focused on coffee shops and walking around those coffee shop areas just to spend some money at local coffee shops and then also chat about sustainable transportation. It's a fun thing to do during the summer when people are out of school. And then some more kind of non-walk and bike to school things that happened this year. I developed a curriculum for mountain bikers. Kids that go through mountain biking programming can learn how to use those skills on the road in a safe way. There's a group called Little Bellas that I presented to and talked to them. 7 to 10-year-old girls learned how to mountain bike, kind of talking to them about how it's a different ballgame being on the road. Had a couple bike rodeos and pop-up bike parks, one at Brevard Elementary School, and then the Buncombe County Bike Rodeo happens every year. We're working with Henderson County on safety city planning, so it's a very exciting thing coming up. that we've started meeting about. So, yeah, to be determined there. And then tabled at a couple events throughout the year, did a couple walk audits around schools, committee meetings. I have a committee of 10 folks throughout the region representing the school systems and the local organizations that are invested in this. So they kind of are my governing committee, so I meet with them once a quarter. And there is a new safety reporting tool for around school zones that came out through our program this year. I worked on it with the GIS coordinator, and that is basically a way for folks to say, hey, this is an unsafe area, we want attention to be given there, and I can kind of bring that to MPO staff and whoever else will listen to me. So, and then I know you guys love my monthly newsletters that come in your news box. If you have not received them, then let me know. But I'm the curator of those newsletters for us. And then looking ahead, we're going to develop some portable storybook trails. So those will be kind of an easy way to get little yard signs for students to walk and read a book. And I can take those throughout different parts of the region. I have 5 counties, so yeah, it's nice to have portable stuff. In the spring, the region will have an art competition, which will get kids engaged in safety in a creative way. Working on an after-school club curriculum based around transportation in general. Working through a manual just so folks can know what we offer with Safe Process School and some success stories with that. Safety campaigns, Safety City, continuing that work. Adaptable biking and e-bike content. I have some organizations I'm working with that do adaptive bicycling and kind of catching up to the more hip folks that are doing e-biking these days. Working on success stories and ways to evaluate the program for continued funding. Working on a fun run with Bard. And then, of course, the low-hanging fruit, more walking and biking to school. So, yeah. And last time I presented to the MPO that someone was like, we want a Facebook page. There is a Facebook page for Safe Routes to School, so I expect a couple new follows on there after this. So, yeah, so keep up with us. I revamped the website a couple months ago, and we're on Instagram and Facebook for the tech savvy. So.
Yeah, Ada and Sandy have the fun job. And just to point out, not every region has those positions. Please use them. Engagement and getting people active is a part of what we've talked about with both our safety targets and situation. Is that culture and just getting people out there and aware in education is a huge part.
Speaking of other positions that regions don't have, we have not had an IMD planner from BikePed helping us for almost a year now when Alexis Ferris left. But we do have a new one. Her name is Nikki Abijah. She was on the call today, but didn't speak up, and she left around 3. But she's invited and she's attending, so we now have that straight connection.
2 more items. I noticed that you changed your PowerPoint template, and I'm a big fan of large colors. So you know that we're paying attention. And
are you for Christmas or what?
And I believe today was Catherine Cordell's last day on the board. She's fallen off, but I wanted to thank her for her service. Awesome. Topics for next meeting? In January.
We'll get to that in December. But we do have follow-up on the idea of a BikePed committee at the MPO, potentially taking some of the work off the TCC and board, as well as some of the follow-up, some of the questions on the Title VI plan that came up at the board last month. But inevitably, there will be more. And safety testing. To be
public comment. Thank you, everyone, for sticking in through this today.
Thank you, everybody.